Hi everyone, this is Patricia. Hoping you guys are having a good day. I am exhausted. I have just finished my last semester and I had to complete a ton of work on all of my school projects and homework assignments and a whole bunch of other things that I had to do in order for me to process my grades for graduation. And I'm going to be receiving a bachelor's degree in communication media with a minor in English focusing on professional writing. I am really, really proud of all the work that I've been able to do over the past 4 years, and I cannot wait for the next chapter in my life. Around May, I'm going to be taking a slight hiatus because I am going on vacation with my family for the first time in years, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic haltering our plans. But that doesn't mean I'm going to leave you high and dry. I'm going to be posting up a few episodes of casual chats, maybe a video or two, and Aaron and I have a new themed month for In Search of the Crystal Skull. But what you're about to listen to are the episode recaps of the first 6 episodes of Season 2B of the 2020 Disney Channel animated series The Owl House that were featured on Arun and Patricia. So for those who don't know, Arun and Patricia is a weekly podcast series where we talk about various pop culture news, and we've been watching Season 2 of The Owl House. But that's not the only show that we talk about. We also talk about the Pixar animated series Monsters at Work, as well as the Disney Channel animated series Amphibia. I just want to let you know that there are major spoilers ahead. If you have not seen Season 2B of The Owl House, then you can go check it out on Disney Plus, Disney Now, Hulu, or wherever you can to support the official release. If you have not listened to our discussions of Season 2 of The Owl House, then you can check it out on Arun and Patricia, or you can check on the YouTube links on the description below. But if you have caught up, then sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Alright, Owl House fans, we've held off long enough, I think, don't you agree? I think it's time to talk about Follies at the Coven parade, and good grief, I was a bit scared at one point because I thought, oh, don't tell me they're going to give Kiki Mora a redemption arc. Thank goodness it didn't happen. And also I think Lou's learned a very valuable lesson about giving people redemption arcs, I think. So
well, Amity learned a very similar lesson when she was trying to help Hunter out.
Exactly, yeah. And story goes that there's going to be a Coven parade, and Edith says it's just about kissing the Emperor's ass, which it pretty much is at this point. But then we get sidetracked to Kikimora, choosing between being with her family and basically staying with the Emperor's Coven, which actually gave us some intrigue of where we thought she was as a character, but the whole thing was a throw off. So I want to say I'm disappointed, but I would say that it's I don't know. I'm not too sure. I'm not sure how to feel about that. I think I need a bit more time to think.
Well, I have something to say about this. So here's the thing. Kikimora was absolutely devastated when she was told by her mother that she would be banished from the family if she left the Coven's Day parade to join them, because we saw that Kikimora, throughout the course of the series where she's going mad with power. We saw this with Eclipse Lake, and we saw sprinkles of it in Hunting Palisman. So the fact that, thinking that, I can't leave this parade because, and I need to keep my allegiance with Emperor Bellos, and who knows, maybe I'll even get a promotion. So, she was willing to sacrifice her own family. And never even seeing them again, because her mother said that she would be banished if she wouldn't go skip out on this parade. So she's willing to do that for power, and she's willing to do that for just trying to get one step closer to being a part of Emperor Belos's good side. But then we realize about the pressure that she has to go through in order for her to stay there, kind of like what we saw with Hunter, in which he's feeling pressure on staying with Emperor Bellos. He's not getting any sleep, and he was saying that I'm going to bury myself because I wasn't successful in going over to Eclipse Lake and finding the Titan's blood. So yeah, Emperor Bellos is pretty screwed up and putting all of this pressure into saying, if you don't do this, you either are a traitor and you're either going to be locked up in the Conformatorium or you're going to die.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think we can all agree now that Kikimora is beyond redemption. I think at this point, but mind you, she's kind of trapped in her own private hell at this point, I guess you could say as well. So
yeah, she's going through her own private hell, and it doesn't help much with our new character that we're introduced to, Terra Snapdragon.
Yeah,
who is the leader of the
keep in mind,
Coven.
like we've kind of like seen all the Coven heads but already. So like Terra, I think was actually kind of like present within like when they were discussing the plot about like they're going to go to the Earth realm, and I think that was at my point where I was like, oh my god, they're going to take it over. But now I'm pretty certain now that Belos is going to basically be taking over the Earth realm, or at least trying to invade it anyway. So after leading this, and Terra is definitely in on the plot. And
also, yeah, for sure.
I mean, she seems to be. I mean, we still get to. I think we're going to get some more Darius at one point now, who's the head of the Abomination Coven, and we're going to probably see all the other Coven heads as well. I mean, to see though, which one's going to surely one of them's going to turn on Belos in the head of the Covens, because I'm pretty sure one of them's going to have a guilty conscience about what's going on. And so we have Rain as well, who is basically going she's being brainwashed with this tea that is being fed by Terra to her, and so she's forgetting everything that's happened in the last month, pretty much.
Yeah, they have forgotten completely about what happened between the episode of Edith's Requiem, saying, oh, I've been sick in bed for an entire month, I haven't seen you in years. So they have no recollection of what happened.
Yeah, but funny enough, when Ida starts dropping memories, or she managed to record when they did the duet together, and that starts to make Rain start to sweat. She starts to think, they start to think about what's going on. So it looks like Rain is still there somewhat. I think it's just that whatever they are drinking is causing them to not have to kind of block it all out. So it's interesting to see what happened if they stop drinking it and it all starts to wear off. So.
That's probably going to happen sometime later on in the series.
Maybe. And so we get some more shenanigans with Hoodie and King, and building this entire contraption that has Emperor Belos on it with a float, and then they start terrorizing everybody with it to distract everybody.
Oh my god! Speaking of Hoodie, oh my god, that scene in which we saw Hoodie pulling out, hanging his skin out to dry, and we saw his skeleton. That happens in the first 5 seconds of when the episode started.
There's one thing I want to say about that. I think they're building up to at one point I think Luz is going to go back to the Earth realm, not willingly. I think she's going to be basically forced to come back by her mother, and then the Day of Unity happens. The Empress Coven invades Connecticut, and then that's the start of them trying to invade planet Earth, and then Luz and Camila are all kind of under house arrest, and then Camila discovers her phone, and then she looks past all the horrible stuff, and then realizes that, oh, wait a second, Luz has had made so many friends. That's the one thing actually I wanted to point out, because in the phone, I was saying to Luz, why are you just kind of photographing all the stuff that's in between? Why do you say that you've got this awesome girlfriend called Amity, and you've got these wonderful friends called Gus and Willow, why do you? And also you got all these other people that that you like as well. Why not take photos of take videos of them, rather than all the stuff in between?
Maybe she has already, but we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's but I don't know. I think we're building up to the fact that she's gonna find her phone, and that Camila's gonna see all that initially, but then she looks past that, starts flicking through, and then realizes, oh wait a second, Luz has made friends. She has progressed here. She has grown up here. And then we get to the point where Camila hands back Luz her talisman and her cloak and says, "Look, you've grown up in this world. You've got to do something. This is something that you need to sort out." And Camila gives her the strength to do that. And then we basically have the final battle with Belos, and that's going to be it.
Speaking of which, I mean, when we saw the flashback of yesterday's lie, Luz completely misremembered what Camila had said.
Yeah, I think Luz is coming apart at the seams at this point. She's lying to her friends about certain things, and Amity also calls her out on it at the end of the episode in the final third, and also she's now remembering things differently from the way that they actually played out, because her emotions are not in check. So
exactly. Yeah. Instead of promise me that you'll leave this place, in reality it's promise me that you'll stay here.
Exactly, and like also like her motivation of saying that was that because she felt guilty that she was pushing her away, not the fact that she was in a horrible place. That's not what where Camila was coming from.
No, I mean, she knows nothing about the Boiling Isles. She knows nothing about Ida, King, Hootie, Amity, Gus, Willow, nothing, because she was so dedicated to helping V out.
So, I just think that, I don't want Luz to go down the Steven Universe route. I'm sorry. Like, we've been already here there with Steven Universe. By the way, what happened with Steven Universe was not fun, at the very end of it. And I really hope they're going to tell, because we've already had, the childhood trauma story, pretty much. We've seen that already with Steven. We don't need to see it again with Luz.
Oh man, bad memories. We're gonna have that's like the equivalent of okay, Luz is not having any control of her emotions, and now she needs to go over to either Hunter or Kikimora so she can be able to embrace her evil side. So is that what's gonna happen?
Well, no, I'm a bit worried that we're gonna see Luz in a hospital nightgown, and you have a doctor explain to her when you have all these childhood traumas, these this is what can happen. I'm not saying that that's not a bad lesson to learn, but when you've seen it already on Cartoon Network, why does Disney need to do the same thing? It's happened already. And don't get me wrong. You can say, oh, Avatar did this and Avatar did that, and that appeared in the Owl House. And it's true. But I just think, Luz is such a delightful character in this. And you can tell that in this episode, they don't want her to lose a delightful touch. Which, I'm really glad that they're keeping hold of that. And by the way, all the Lumity stuff is there for all the Lumity fans to see. And
it's not there for very long, but it is there where Amity is trying to learn how to speak Spanish using a cookbook.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And,
that's awesome, by the way. And also when and
now because
Amity...
of that, now she's now Amity's known as Sweet Potato. Because of that.
Yes,
so.
Everybody in the fan community was calling Amity a tomato because of her blushing, but now forever known, she will be known as the Sweet Potato. And I also love the little parallel where Luz gave Amity a kiss, and in the previous episode, Amity gave Luz a kiss.
Mm-hmm. And so, and by the way, while we were taking a break, I was watching Morgan Terry's reaction. Oh my! You every time Morgan, put Morgan and Lumini together, I guarantee you're going to get really good, really funny reactions.
Did she scream out loud, and was she squealing?
No, she basically ran around a room and knocked things over. So.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Go watch it. It's amazing. But
yes, I will watch it as soon as I'm done watching.
After we're done with this episode, I'm actually just gonna sit down and actually watch everyone's reaction. Fusionator's probably put his reaction up. And,
I need to watch it. I need to watch Fusionator's reaction too. Yeah,
and also
I need to watch Rebecca Rose's discussion of the Owl House episode. So I'm excited.
That's
about
incredible.
watching
Disney's still allowing her to do that. I don't know if it's just Rebecca should turn around and said screw it. Disney's probably not going to hire me for the long term anyway, so I'm just going to do videos anyway. I don't know, but
I mean, she hasn't done an Amphibia video yet, so who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, Owl House is kind of her thing at the moment, so I think maybe she's probably just going to end up just kind of strange to do that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe she might do an Amphibia video. Maybe she hasn't just put it up yet. Maybe so.
Yeah, maybe she has. Maybe she's just waiting for the right moment.
Yeah, not so average fangirl. Also, I want to see her. I want to see her reaction too. So,
yeah, I want to see everybody's reaction to this.
Good grief! It's going to be so much
my
fun.
Gosh! I also love the fact that there's just such a subtlety on the Lumity relationship, because I mean they didn't play it off way too much, but at the same time they kept just enough of it to keep the fans satisfied, because they've been waiting for almost a year for new episodes of the Owl House.
It's been there at the beginning. It was there at the beginning of the episode, and it was there at the end. So yeah, there was definitely plenty of it, and also Lumity is going to probably play quite tightly into the rest of the show, because I mean if reaching out is saying what it's going to be, the fact that Luz and Amity are going to enter into this underground dueling fest, it might be the fact that that they themselves might end up having to team up together and work a lot more closer with one another, and maybe that might be for better or for worse. You never know.
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
And another thing that I just absolutely was appreciative, and I give credit to this episode, is that when Luz forgot to get her phone when she was at Hexside, when she was being picked up by Ida and King, Amity could have checked the phone at any point. She could have, and when she went over to Willow and she discussed about like her, I know that Luce is lying to me. I know that she's been to the human realm. I know that she's talked to her mother, and she had her phone. I mean, the plot, if it was like any generic plot, could have been like this. Her and Willow could have been watching the video from her phone. They knew that she was doing this. And then Amity would have probably given the phone to Luce when she confronted her during the parade. And, maybe like after they fought off Kikimora and Terra. And then maybe she should have said, why didn't you tell me this? I don't know if I can trust you anymore. And maybe either break off the relationship or not even speak to her.
Well, I mean, we're not there yet. I think in regards to, I mean, I would say that for, you lied to me and didn't tell me about this, I would say that's strike one. I think what we're looking at now in the Lumity relationship, what happens at strike two? And what happens when, Luz, kind of pushes her, trust boundary in her relationship a second time. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yes.
What happens at the second instant that, Amity finds that she can't trust Luz because she's basically falling apart as a character? What happens at that point? And then, at the third point, which I think if they do go down this route, maybe that's going to happen at the very end of the thing. Maybe, losing Amity might... Here's the thing, I think what might happen at the very end of the series, and this is just, the end of the season, and I think this is just me, I think Amity ends up unwillingly traveling back to Earth and getting stuck there, and Luz basically is there with her too, but then Amity kind of goes on for the ride, and then in season 3 it's going to be like, here's Amity having to get used to basically living in the human realm while they're trying to find a way to get back. I don't
know about that, but all I know is that I'm really, really glad that Amity respected Luz's privacy and saying, I didn't check your phone, but I know you're hiding something. Why don't we talk about it? Because I cannot help you if I don't know what's wrong. That is a great way of showcasing a relationship, saying, please be open to me, even if you're scared. I need to know so I can help you. That is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah. Which, you can kind of not blame Luz for kind of like saying, well, I don't want to say things that will upset you at the same time. So, it's a great dynamic. It's almost Russian novel kind of esque kind of, you say. It's I want to tell you everything that's going on, but I'm really worried about what the consequences of it's going to be. And by the way, she's worried about what her mom's going to think. Of course she's going to be worried. So, of course she's not going to say everything too much about what's going to happen. So, she's got a reason to kind of not to clam up in a way. So,
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what makes great conflict, by the way. That is excellent.
Mm-hmm. So, then we get the ending bit, which once again reintroduces us to Bellows. And he is now saying that apparently in a month's time, which, by the way, I wanted to talk about this, at the very beginning of the podcast, but I didn't want to give away any spoilers. A month's time is going to be somewhat 2/3 of the way through the season. So the likelihood is, if we are literally talking about a month, so maybe come April 20th, something like that, maybe we're going to probably look at the Day of Unity actually happening, and maybe, during that time, the last couple of episodes might be, talking about what happened while the Day of Unity is going on. So,
yeah, I mean, here's the thing, I don't know how the time frame works in the Owl House, because it just means it's moving really quickly. Even when Ida was talking to Rain saying, I met up with you weeks ago. So, I mean, that thing that happened between Ida's Requiem and with the current episode, Follies at the Coven Day Parade, I mean, that was the transition was 4 episodes. So 4 episodes is that happened weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what the time frame is.
Well, I mean, it looks like it's happening, every time an episode happens, a week goes by from the looks of it. So that's what I seem to be keeping track of, because that's what was happening in season 1 when all that was going on. So I think at the minute, so if we're looking back at season 2 again, when we had Ida's Requiem, Ida's Requiem happened, good grief, so that was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, 4 weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, so it was weeks ago.
And even with even Rain said, I've been sick in bed for a month. So that is great timing, because we had Knock Knock Knocking on Hootie's Door. We had Eclipse Lake. We had Yesterday's Lie, and now Follies at the Coven Head Parade. So 4 episodes. So that means a week had happened in between.
Yeah.
It matches up.
It does. So, by the way, at the very end, we end up with Bellos' monologue of what he's planning to do. So, apparently, the plan is that they're going to go to the head of the boiling isle. So, I'm assuming they're going to the big skull thing, and so in a month's time, there's going to be some chosen ones who are going to get the ability to basically go to a place where there's going to be no magic, aka Earth. And so I get a feeling that Bellows' plan is that he's planning to usually go back to Earth, and he's basically going to start an invasion of basically taking all the witches off the Boiling Isles and basically taking them into the Earth realm. And if he did that, I mean, that would get rid of wild magic. If you think about it, because it'd only be left with the people who are hooked onto those Coven tattoos and everything like that, so they're still with the control of the Coven, and then I'm assuming either everybody who isn't part of the Coven is going to be left on the Boiling Isles, and something's going to happen to the Boiling Isles. I don't know, but then the bad side about that is that humanity's in danger because there's going to be all these witches going to come through, and basically they're going to take over basically the east coast of America and possibly even the world. So it's,
I mean. Oh man, there's so many questions that we don't know of yet, but I mean, we get breadcrumbs of information each and every single episode, and we just are begging for more.
Yeah. Mind you,
and there's a lot of great little moments that happen, especially with when Amity and Willow are together and they're trying to cope with everything that's been happening, and Amity even braids Willow's hair, and also with with Gus and Willow trying to theorize about what Emperor Bellos looks like, and then when they see him for the first time, they're like meh, and then we have the King and Hootie together with at the float, and they're fighting off against Steve and all of the other soldiers, and I mean, and even that fight with Ida and Raid was excellent, and seeing Amity and Luce together fighting for the very first time against Kikimora and Terra was also really great.
Yeah. So also, I mean, we didn't actually get to see Luz and Amity actually fight Terra. That's the only thing. So we don't even actually. Mind you, we don't actually know if Luz and Amity can hold their own against the Coven head. I think.
Yeah, because Terra, oh my God, she reminds me so much of Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter, in which she is so strict with following the rules, but at the same time, anybody who steps away from it slightly, it suffers from severe consequences. So
nothing I couldn't deal with a canister of Roundup.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, we don't know if that kind of stuff would even work with. I mean, we know that stuff would work with earth plants, but
do you know what would be fun? If the Day of Unity happens and the witches start invading Earth, and then maybe a Camila and maybe he lets she lets that crazy guy out of that museum, and they have to they realize that this is what the Day of Unity is about, and they find about Emperor Balor's plan before everybody else's, and they gather a load of lunatics to say, okay, what do we have to do to defend ourselves against all these witches? And they come with all these elaborate traps and contraptions to fight off the Emperor's Coven. That'd be kind of fun to do.
That would be interesting. I mean, Jacob, gathers up his own conspiracy group, and they just try to fight off witches with, okay, we're gonna see if we can fight them off with this trap and with this contraption, and maybe we'll throw water at them. We'll see.
Yeah, just this. Hey, they're not melting after you put water on them. It's oh my God, you guys watch too many films.
It works with the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, good grief. So but yeah. So I guess that's our thoughts on the Owl House so far, and so a good start. I think it gave
really good start, and I'm looking forward to next week. Oh my God, next week Lilith is coming back, and it involves with her and Luce trying to find out some information about Philip Wittebane, and I'm gonna call this. I don't know what the episode is about. I'm gonna call this. I think, in my opinion, this is going to be a time travel episode.
I think it is going to be as well, because you also actually one thing we didn't notice as well, when they showed Lilith and her mother at home, and Lilith's got her glasses back on.
You remember that live stream event that happened with the Streamily, and Luz Batista, the storyboard artist, was doing some custom art of Lilith and Luz. That's the outfit that Lilith was wearing when she was with Hootie and holding the book. So we knew about what this outfit looked like months before even the episode came out.
Yeah. So, I think in regards to the time travel episode, like, maybe they go back and they find out what about Philip Wizardbane and, like, what he was about, and maybe like it's only temporary, so like they only find out like certain bits of information, but at least enough to like keep us going throughout the rest of the show. I think I think that's where we're going with this, because I think it'd be kind of like a bit weird to like throw so much information at us as possible to like say, oh, okay, then we'll kind of know what the rest of the show is going to basically be. Less is more. I think is one thing we're learning about how good the Owl House is at the minute. I think, and
absolutely, I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right, so now that we have that out of the way, let's discuss about the newest episode of the Owl House that had just aired, which is Elsewhere and Elsewhen, and my God, where do we begin?
We have to stop saying to ourselves, oh, this is going to be a delightful episode about Luz and Lilith. Oh, this is going to be a delightful episode about Hootie. Oh, this is going to be a delightful episode about other character and everything like that, when we know that there's a big, massive thing going on, and now... we are left with quite a few dramatic story points that I think we need to go over. So, let's start off with the side story first, and that is that Ida has finally come to terms with the fact that she attacked her dad, and now her dad, she's got to stop moving away from that, and her dad has forgiven her in some way and now wants to move forward, and Ida needs to kind of drop the guilt and needs to move forward herself. And by the way, Del giving Ida the seed, is such that is such a great symbolism. In regards to we've got hey, I can't carve talismans anymore. By the way, it's shown in the story that Del is actually like the master talisman craftsman, and so he helped Ida carve Hootie. Sorry, not Hootie. Albert, and that's one of his favorite works, and. Now he's at the point where he's been helping. Apparently, he's been helping the Bat Queen actually restock the wood that they need to actually make talismans. So this is an interesting point, because it makes me wonder, because if we are gonna get to the point where there's gonna be like this this resistance to the Emperor, the Bat Queen's gonna need to be part of that, because if she's regrowing the talismans, but they could be potential weaponry for fighting off against Bellows, that's she's gonna be an important thing, I think, going forward.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I think that the Bat Queen and the other Palisman are going to be, hugely crucial to what's going to happen. And also that Palistrum seed, oh my God, that's going to be huge as well. It's because that Palistrum wood is very, very, very rare nowadays, I think that seed is going to be, really, really important to the where Emperor Bellows is in terms of, needing Palistrum wood to survive, and also getting Palistrum wood so that they can be able to use it to carve talisman, so that the witches can be able to fight.
Mm-hmm. And so there's that, which I think, by the way, was got a lot of tears out of many Owl House fans, from what I can understand. So it was and by the way, it was a very emotional moment for Ida. And yeah. Then we get the next thing, which is Lilith is now the curator of a museum over at Bonesborough, and then she ends up meeting her mentor in the Emperor's Coven, who is apparently is supposed to be based off Dora the Explorer, from what I've heard from Rebecca Rose. So so that I just rolled my eyes at that point, it was just oh, come on, guys. We know this is based on one of the most not the most liked characters, and she even has a talisman who's based off Boots, which is a whip, and so they even the whole Indiana Jones kind of vibe with her as well. Not seen that before. So
nope. And also apparently, according to what Rebecca Rose said, is that the voice actress for Flora Desplora is actually one of the voice actresses behind Dora's mom in the later seasons. So it's yeah, there's your connection there.
I think Flora to me is going to be she's kind of. I'm not saying she's going to be bad as Towley from South Park, but oh my goodness, she's getting there. So
I don't think that she'll be around that much longer, but
I hope not. Yeah, that.
Anyway, but yeah, let's get into the main focus of this episode.
Oh, babe, you've kind of gone a bit echoey.
Hello?
Oh, just try again.
Hello?
Oh, there you go. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of weird. But
Yeah.
so in regards to so that character was a thing. There's not been very much things I've disliked in the Owl House, and I think that was one of them. So it was disappointing to see that. But anyway, going on with the actual plot. So Luz is trying to find out about this collector, and she's found out about that in the I think it's probably, from what I understand, like the journal then kind of like burns off at that point, at the end of that plot point. So I'm guessing now, I think the Echo Mouse's job is now done. I guess like there's not going to be
done.
yeah, I guess there's no more like journal to like show, as far as I'm aware, like because now it's all burned up. But in regards to, so I guess that we're just going to hear more about Philip Witherbane, and Luz then gets the idea of trying to find like a time portal to try and go back to the time of seeing Philip Witherbane for herself. And so she brings Lilith along for the ride. Lilith isn't sure that she's able to like power any machinery for that, but then Luz gets the idea of using the Titan glove, and so they use another part of the coagulated blood to power up the machines and to be able to find time portals, which are actually on the beach there, between the ocean and the land. So they find a bunch of time portals. They're all different. Like one takes them back to which is basically the Cretaceous period, like the version of the Boiling Isle. So it's interesting because I don't know what the timeline is of like the Boiling Isles itself, but I guess it's probably been around for maybe like millions of years, maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe it's shorter than that. I don't know. But and also they find a time portal that takes them back to like 5 minutes before, which I thought was hilarious and stupid rock. And so then they finally find the portal they're looking for, which takes them back to the Dead Wardian period, and that's where they find Philip Witherbane. And it turns out that he's a bit of a weakling from what we understand. Like he gets picked on a lot from like the other witches. So he kind of reminds me of like Marty McFly Senior from Back to the Future. Like when they find him, like he's always been picked on by Biff. In a way, like all the other guys. So he is sort of like that. And but then Luz comes to his defense and manages to save the journal. And here's the thing about this: like, I don't know how to feel about like the whole like going back in time and like changing history, kind of like deal. And so because they go to the point where like she's bragging about like, oh hey, I taught Philip Witherbane something. When I thought, like when you travel back in time, you could potentially be changing things that you shouldn't necessarily be changing.
Yeah.
Which that kind of throws me off a little bit. Like, usually what happens is you go back in, at the end of the episode, you go back in time and actually change it all back, which they don't do in this, by the way. So,
No, they don't.
I don't know.
Because it's been stated that the time pools are never in the same place twice.
Mm-hmm. So they meet Philip Witherbane and they disguise themselves and say that they're witches from like a misty castle or something like that, and so they go with that, and then they find Philip Witherbane's actually been living in a cave this entire time and has been surviving pretty much on the glyphs that Luz has also found as well. So he's actually learned pretty how to teleport, and so he does that, and so I guess that's one thing maybe Luz probably learned from Philip Witherbane whilst he was doing all of that, like how to do teleportation glyphs. So
I think that's the one thing that we did see that was different.
Mm-hmm. So they teleport over to what is the head of the Titan, which Lilith says is sacred ground. So I'm guessing that's it's the head of the Titan is the place that people do not go to, from what I understand. And so they say, oh, there's this door that's open, but Lilith is suspicious because it's been open. It looks like it's been opened a few times before, and also that Philip is starting to remind her of something that she used to work with. And we get to the point where she ends up being Philip. You see over the shoulder writing his journal, and then like it turns out that he's actually been lying the entire time about, or exaggerating some parts of the journal. So which is kind of saddening at the same time, because apparently now Luz has found out that her reading that journal has probably been a waste of time. pretty much.
Yeah, it's kind of really devastating for Luce because she thought that she was going to get some information regarding about like how to build a portal door and how we're able to survive in the Boiling Isles as a human. And yeah, I mean, the only thing that she had seen is that he was a liar, he was a jerk, and he was very kind of like angry and prejudiced towards witches.
Yeah. So, he tries to use Lilith as a sacrifice for this Jurassic creature that's currently looking in there, and
Stone Sleeper.
yeah, the Stone Sleeper, and then so that whole thing kicks off, and then while Luz is trying to save Lilith, you get Philip finds this mirror, which I guess is his connection to the Collector that we've been hearing so much about. And so I'm guessing with everything that plays out, and by the way, when all that plays out, and they manage to get the that sleeping creature under control, a stone creature under control, Philip Witherbane makes his escape, but then Luz and Lilith chase him down, and then Lilith, which I think we didn't really pay too much attention to. By the way, a lot of people reacted really like, oh my god, Lilith punched Philip Witherbane in the face, and he's actually got like an injury from being punched in the face. And I'm just kind of sitting there like, well, I've seen Principal Prickly from Recess punch, the bad guy in Recess Schools out in the face. And then we saw, like, Carl from Fredrickson from Up, bash a guy in with his cane. So, like, for me, like, someone who's, like, been, noticed violences in Disney, productions, this to me isn't new. But I think for all the Owl House fans, I guess they got a kick out of it. So.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't expect Lilith to do it. You would expect Ida to do it, but not Lilith.
Yeah, well, she did it. So, but I think what's happened is, mind you, it makes me wonder, was what happened with, was Philip Witherbane already on this track already of, like, becoming Emperor Bellows? I mean, like, given the way that he's... Apparently, when he gets to the cave, it's shown that he's actually drawn glyphs on himself and actually cursed himself. From the looks of it,
yeah,
or maybe.
And also, if you see in the background, there's already like blueprints of a Grimwalker, like with the stone sleepers and the bones and the Silky Dama scales, like. And he was saying like, I need to live long enough to do this. It's like, yeah, we can probably say that maybe he's the Grimwalker.
This has been my theory, like from the entire time, is that I think that. Philip Witherbane, I guess we can now say, is probably Bellows at this point, but which originally I thought was kind of disappointing, but at the same time, like, it makes me wonder how on earth he's been keeping himself alive for this long, and now we know why. I think the likelihood is he has been transferring himself into different Grimwalkers, and he's been slowly going insane with every like time he's transferred himself into another one, and which makes you wonder, like, good grief, Hunter's not looking too good right now, I have to say. Like, it also says he needs another sacrifice as well, so it makes me wonder, like, is he next?
I guess so.
In regards to, like, and what's he going to sacrifice Hunter to? Like, is he going to transfer himself into Hunter? Or
either that, or maybe he's sacrificing him to the Titan so that they can be able to have the Day of Unity.
Yeah, but, that's still yet to be kind of, like, figured out, really, like, what this is really all about. So... But,
yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, once again with this show, we reveal things and then we just have more questions piled up.
So, and coming up on the next episode, we're going to be having another sports episode, which apparently is going to, from what I understand from me, like looking at some of the teaser stuff, I think it's going to focus a standoff between the Golden God and Willow now.
That should be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to this.
Is this the track we're going to go on? Like, so he had a one-on-one with Luz. He's had a one-on-one with Amity. He's now going to have a one-on-one with Willow. I mean, like, is Gus going to be next after that? And, yeah, like, it's, like, is this going to be, like, I think we're building up to, like, he's going to fight, like, every single person that is in Luz's crowd, and then eventually, it's, maybe we're going to end up in a situation where, Hunter maybe, like, switches sides, maybe, and maybe, like, he says, oh, hey, I've been wrong about you guys this entire time. Like, and then, but maybe it might be a bit too late for that, I don't know. So,
we'll see.
We'll see, but we are looking forward to the next episode, we have to say.
I mean, yeah, I am for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure Willow has not been working out for no reason, I have to say. So, I think, we're going to see how much upper body strength she's gained in the last since that episode.
Yes, all the gains.
All the gains. Let's first talk about the Owl House Any Sport in a Storm. That is the latest episode of the Owl House that came out over the weekend. And so I guess what we've learned about is that, we almost swerved at one point because we originally thought that this was going to be an episode just about Willow and she's going to get like her own episode and then there's going to be a bit of interaction with the Golden Guard, and we thought that there was going to be like a fight between them because, that's the kind of the theme that we've been going on with the Owl House. The Golden Guard fights with Luz. The Golden Guard fights with Amity. The Golden Guard now fights with Willow. And this is going to be like, confrontation number 3 in this way. But surprisingly, it wasn't. And this ended up in... By the way, now a lot of the fans are now actually getting behind Huntlow because of this.
No, please, come on. We just literally started, people. I mean, from the looks of it, Hunter respects Willow, saying, like, Captain, so... I mean, let's just cool it down for a little bit, people.
Well, I was originally Huntmara for myself, Hunter and Emera. But that was my original ship. But no, I'm actually sort of behind Huntlow now as a thing. But I mean, I agree.
Enough, but I still think it's too soon.
I agree. Like, I just think it is. But I think in regards to I guess we'll talk about Hunter blushing in later on in this. But I mean, the other thing that we weren't expecting as well is that we're actually getting you and I have been talking about the Good Witch Azura and about. Who created the books, where did they come from, everything like that. And, funnily enough, we sort of got a half answer to all of that in this episode. So, apparently, by the way, there is something about this which I really want to get into, and that is this, is that, so the story is that Luz and Amity, so Amity finds out that the creator of the Good Witch Azura, who I think is, I can't remember the name of the character they refer to. Who was it? What was the name of the character? The author of the books, they actually came up with a name for it.
Yeah, they did give the name for it. And if you look in the back, they were even mentioning, like, did you know that, she's from the Boiling Isles? And then Luz was like, no way, that can't be because, she is a human. And then when they took a look in the back, it's like, it looks the same thing, except the difference is that with Amity's book, it has the elf, witch
the witch
ears.
Ears, yeah, and the other person is shown as a human. So they come to a theory that the author of the book can cross between realms, and that got us really excited, including me. And I want this to be explained, and so that's the side. By the way, that's only the side. Story, by the way, which is a ballsy side story to put in, when you're looking at the other subject matter that we're currently dealing with at the moment. So
yeah, I mean, to be fair, we already did have Luz and Amity dedicated to like their own episode like last week, and also we're gonna get another one next week. So I mean, it was about time that we got to focus on Willow, because I mean, remember before that the season 2B episode started airing, and everybody on Reddit and Twitter was talking about like, Gus got his own episode, where's Willow's episode? And I knew that they were gonna do a Willow episode, so it's about time that we get her focused.
To be fair, Willow, I mean, if you remember, obviously they're more focused on Luz in episode, I think it was like, the second episode when they were talking about, the Teenage Abomination episode. Where
the Teenage Abomination episode,
where Willow was in the Abomination track and she was miserable, and then she got transferred over to the Plant track in that one. So she sort of like had episode, and also keep in mind there was Understanding Willow as well, which was the episode where they pulled all the memories out of her head and then they had to put them all back together again. So she has had mentions in episodes, but not anything like specific of her being the main focus of the episode until now. And so any Sport in the Storm focuses on Willow. And she wants to start her own team, sports team in the Hexide school. But the problem is that her old teacher, who used to be in the Abomination track, has been holding it against her that she quit and she went to the Plant track, and so she's not allowing her to basically have her derby team. So he ends up throwing down a challenge to Willow to say, okay, if you can put a team together to challenge my team at derby, then I will basically, allow you to have that team, maybe allow you to have that team that year. So then at the same time, Hunter is also wanting to continue making a name for himself, or like live up to the stage of the Golden Guard. And then we get an interesting note from Darius, of all people.
Darius was a major surprise for me this episode.
Yeah, but mind you, in a way, he's kind of confused me a little bit, because, like, if you remember, like, he seems loyal in some ways to the Emperor's Coven, but at the same time, he, like, has, like, this rebellious side that, kind of conflicts with, like, his duties to the Coven. So, at the beginning, we're being told that he does not like the Golden Guard in any sense, because, he does everything that he's told to do. Pretty much. Yeah. And so that's the reason why he ends up resenting the Golden Guard. Nothing more about, him being where imagine it is implied to start with. Like, he keeps calling him, like, Little Prince, and so he does, like, resent the idea of the Golden Guard being his superior in some way. And also,
exactly. Yeah. And also we knew this from separate times that Lilith didn't like the Golden Guard either, saying that, he's just a self-entitled brat who's, in the Emperor Bellus's good graces. So I guess it turns out that a lot of people think that, because he's a 6-year-old kid, and also he just so happens to be Emperor Bellus's nephew, that he gets all this special treatment, that, Kikimora doesn't like him, Lilith doesn't like him, and now that we see, Darius doesn't like him either.
Yeah, so Darius basically says, if you want to prove yourself as the Golden God, go and find some new recruits. And so he sends him off on that. And so Hunter decides to go in disguise as a student over at Hexside, and he basically puts this persona of, like, what's his name, Caleb or something like that, or
Caleb,
Caleb, okay, and it says he's from the Toe. He ends up, putting on this facade, and but he ends up meeting up with Willow, and Willow sees how talented he is in regards to flying on his stuff. By the way, I think his talisman is now known as Flapjack, I believe.
I guess we'll have to mention this. So, Dana Terrace did a live stream recently, raising money for, obviously, with the LGBTQ helping of ever since the infamous bill that we just talked about earlier in the show. So go check that out. So, as usual, when it comes to Dana Terrace, she always has a wheel and she spins it. And then there were like 3 diaries that you get to hear from. There was Luce's diaries, there was Hunter's diary, and there was Lilith's diary. And one of them was from Hunter's diary, and he mentioned about that the talisman's name is Flapjack. Now, it hasn't been said yet on the show, but a lot of people are saying that this is probably canon because probably Dana Terrace wrote this, and, Zeno Robinson himself, who is the voice actor of Hunter, was the one who said this diary reading as well. So for now, he is not known as Little Rascal. He was never known as Little Rascal to begin with. That was a name that Luce gave to the Cardinal. So yes, for now, let's call him Flapjack.
Yeah, so he's basically flying on Flapjack, and he's doing incredibly well to get away from one of the beasts that's there. And so Willow notices this and invites him onto a flying derby team. And at first Hunter rejects her, and then but then he picks up a pamphlet and then realizes that Willow is trying to the best and the brightest, and so he ends up going back saying, "Oh wait, you can get the best people," and so he ends up going on that, and one of the motivations of him doing that is because at the very beginning, there's a meme that's currently going around with Hunter's face on it. And basically, it's like the "How do you do, fellow kids."
Oh my God.
Yeah. There's that meme going around, because that's basically how Hunter starts out, trying to get new recruits from the Hexside school. He thinks, if everyone relates to the same stuff that I relate to, then this thing will be a piece of cake. So but not realizing that he's actually this very very awfully treated, very lonely teenage boy who is basically, having to be dragged away from his family, and gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning every single damn day to
here's the thing, we mentioned this in Hunting Talisman that, he comes from a family that doesn't know how to do magic, and then Bellows took him in. We could assume that he took him in at a very young age because he was never able to interact with anybody his age. I mean, he's the youngest out of everybody at the Emperor's Coven, and he doesn't know how to interact with kids his age. So when he tries to like be all cool and say, "Hey, you want to join the Emperor's Coven?" everybody's just like looking at him weird.
Yeah, but it's not just that. It's like, you know, his idea of normality is everybody's idea of hell. Like, you know, exactly. So, I mean, he can't relate to anybody whatsoever until he finally meets up with Willow. And to be fair, like, you know, Willow and Hunter do have a connection because if you remember, everyone was making fun of Willow because she was a late bloomer and everyone called her half a witch. And people make fun of Hunter not just because, like, you know, of nepotism within the Emperor's Coven, but because, you know, he has no magic ability of his own until, you know, he, like, uses, like, artificial magic or uses a talisman. You know, so, like, he's powerless without his staff. So he's also known as half a witch. So, in a way, they have, like, this connection of, like, oh, you know, it took her a while to, you know, get used to magic, and it's taken, you know, Hunter a hell of a lot more to basically able to use magic himself, even though he has no power.
Exactly,
so.
Yeah.
So
you know, I can
like,
definitely see the parallels between the two and how they were able to see a lot of similarities with each other.
Yeah, so, like, you know, that's a cute little connection for them both to have. You know, like, there you go. Like, you know, that's two you know, half witches in this world who can become one. There you go. Okay, so sure. Anyway, I'm a 36-year-old male. Let's get back to that. So you know, so Willow does find some people, and they don't turn out to be as good on their face value, and Hunter is angry about this and says that they're all pathetic, and so Willow ends up having to like drag Hunter to the Grudgeby field to actually show that, oh wait, it's, you know, say to everybody, hey, they may not, you know, have like, you know, complete great abilities, but they actually have special, you know, parts of the team that makes them all work together really well. So, you know, you've got
here's the thing, like I mean, this was a major surprise for me in terms of like the people that were actually gathered for this rugby team. So, I mean, Willow and Gus is not too surprising because, you know, we already talked about with Willow that she was a late bloomer and
it's not a Grudgeby team, it's a Derby team.
Oh, yeah, the Derby team, right. So the Derby team, we do know that, you know, Willow was a late bloomer. We knew that Gus was, you know, he's 2 years younger than everybody else. He's a prodigy. And we even talked about this in a previous episode that even he thought that being in the illusionist class was completely useless. And then we find out that it's not. And then we have Viney, who we remember from the season 1 episode, the first day, where, you know, she was always sent to detention because she doesn't know what she wants to do until she decides to do both healing and beast coven. And then we have Skara, which is interesting. It's like we knew Skara is like one of the popular kids with Amity and Basha, so I didn't expect her to be like the odd one of the group.
Well, if I recall, I think she also kind of patched things up with Willow as well, I think somewhere down the line. I don't know whenabouts that was, but
I guess it was, if you remember Winged Like Witches, I guess if we remember that when Skara and Basha were in one team and then Amity, Luce, and Willow were in another, I guess maybe that's where they patched things up.
By the way, actually, there's one thing, now that we say that, there's actually one thing we actually kind of left out, and you know who that was?
What's that?
Basha.
Oh, yeah. So early on in the episode, Basha appears to Luce because Luce is trying to start the Good Witch Azura book club, which finally, by the way. And so then Basha sees the covers and she even reads a passage from the Good Witch Azura and she just thinks it's like really cheesy and hokey.
But by the way, Patricia, there's one thing you've actually left out. Do you notice there's actually a difference that we've not seen Basha, you know, in any other episode? Do you know what was missing?
What was that?
Her friends. There's no one around her.
Yeah, you're right. Like, where's Skara? Where's Ella? And, you know, we know that Amity's not around. So, yeah, I mean, even though she said, I have more friends than you, where are they?
Where are they? Yeah, exactly. So, you know, Basha right now is going on her own story arc because she's in any way going through a crisis because she realizes, like, you know, she's having to, like, pick on people on her own and, like, everyone seems to be kind of, like, you know, not hanging around with her anymore. Like, you know, by the time we get to the end of the series, or by the time we get, you know, a couple of episodes in, I mean, are we going to see Basha, like, going through a crisis because she realizes that she's on her own?
I would love to see that, by the way. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like, it's that seems to be the direction we seem to be going with Basha at the moment. Like, she's not changing yet, but eventually she'll be forced to change because her behavior is not reaping her rewards, or, like, being popular.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we saw what Luce is able to do by just being herself. She's able to attract a lot of people because she brings out the best of them.
Mm-hmm. So, going back to we go to the actual derby match, and they end up taking on the professor's team, and they end up winning, and it's all through the teamwork that we were talking about before, and so they do really well. And by the way, Hunter is like the star player pretty much in this. Like, he nabs, like, by the way, not to say that he's like the he wasn't helped around by other people like he was, but he ends up catching the most flags and ends up winning it for the team. And which he ends up making all the friends that he wanted. So, like,
this is the first time that I've seen in the series where he's like genuinely happy. He's smiling. Like, this is amazing, where he's able to just enjoy himself, do something that he wants to do outside of what Emperor Bellos wants to do. He has friends. He's able to do an activity that's fun. There's no pressure. He's genuinely happy. And then he has to do his duties by saying, oh, by the way, my name's not Caleb, my name is Hunter, and I'm the Golden Guard, and you guys will be perfect for the Emperor's Coven. And that's when Steve and the crew decide to, like, take them away and lock up them in jail, and then Darius decides to come by and just pick them up. And then that's when Steve comes along and says to Hunter, you do realize what you just done, right? I mean, these kids are going to have to go through like massive training, and also you do know what Emperor Bellos does with their palisman. And then he says Steve kind of regrets what he's done, and it's like, wow, what a big revelation from Steve out of all people.
And by the way, like, Hunter himself is having a crisis now, because here he is been trying to, like, get into be the best Golden Guard that he could be, and then he realizes that Hunter's kind of like having second thoughts about it. So he ends up flying up to Darius's airship and ends up boarding it and distracting him and allowing all the kids to escape. Pretty much, and also they land the ship, but in actual fact they crash it, and
they crash the ship. Yeah.
So then Darius takes offense to this, because he's once again he's the head of the he's like the head of the Abomination Coven, and he's been basically outwitted by a bunch of kids, and so he takes offense to that and says he's going to basically get revenge on them. And Willow actually somewhat holds her own against him. Even though her offense wasn't all that great, but before Darius can go any further with his attack, where Hunter turns around and says, no, this is all a mistake. Like, these kids are not, fit for the Emperor's Coven. It gives them a chance to escape, pretty much. And but then Darius turns around and he looks like he's about to give Hunter a whooping, but in actual fact he actually says, oh hey, I'm actually impressed with what you've did. You've actually went out and made some friends, and you've actually gone against what Bellos wanted you to do in the first place. Which
is a shock, by the way. Like, I mean, you saw what happened with Ida and Rain in Ida's Requiem. If Kikimora wasn't in the way, do you think that maybe Darius would have seen what what they were trying to do with Emperor Bellos or something? I mean, I don't know what it would have been like.
I don't know. It's really kind of weird, because in that case, then it's kind of a continuity error to kind of like Darius be like one of the people who tried to stop the rebellion and capture Rain. Like,
here's the thing. He didn't know that it was Rain.
Yeah.
He had no idea that it was Rain and Ida who were responsible for this, because they were invisible. And the curse wasn't like the curse involving with like Ida and with Rain playing their music. It was something that he wasn't familiar with. So if he would have known that it was Rain who was trying to trying to take down Emperor Bellos, it's like, I wonder what would have happened if not only that he knew about this, but if Kikimora wasn't in the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird, really, but it's because it's definitely a side of Darius I thought we weren't going to be able to see, and in actual fact, if that's the case, then why is he not leading his own rebellion against the Emperor?
Maybe he is, and we don't know about it.
Well, maybe he's just not bothered. That's another thing as well.
He did look like he wasn't bothered. I mean, he even told Hunter when he was trying to give him that mission about like gather up some kids for the Emperor's Coven because we need some new recruits. I mean, he was even saying, "You're calling me on my day off," which, according to what Hunter says, they have a day off every year. That's gotta suck.
Well, yeah, So it's just so surprising that we get this from Darius of all people. Like when we've kind of like seen that he seems to be. At one point, I thought he was kind of like all in, like on the the whole Day of Unity thing. But no, it seems that the one thing I think I've seen about some of the heads of the Coven, it seems like they're just kind of like along for the ride and like actually not like involved in the Emperor's plans. Like it just makes me kind of worry. Like why is Emperor Belus being so offhand with like his Coven while he's off doing whatever. That's
an interesting thing. It's like, when Hunter was given that letter, Emperor Bellos was saying, I'm off doing my duties. Go take care of the Emperor's Coven for me. It's like, what was he doing? Does this have any relation to what happened in the last episode when Luce and Lilith went to go see Philip Whittabane?
I don't know, but, mind you, like, it is going to be interesting to see. I mean, I think that episode's going to be revisited at some point.
Like, yes, absolutely, it's going to be revisited. And here's the thing that I just noticed now when like looking through like some of the pictures on like social media, is that when Hunter was sewing the Golden Guard sigil into his cape, that is the old Golden Guard symbol. And not only that, that is the symbol of Gravesfield from yesterday's lie.
Yeah, exactly. So, actually, I was going to bring that up at some point, but it's interesting. I mean, it makes me wonder now, like, what is the origins of the Golden Guard? Because Darius, if you remember, said, "Oh, I remember your predecessor." So it looks like. I mean, I'm guessing maybe. I mean, here's one theory I'm looking at. Like, maybe the Golden Guard is pretty much like the Arbiter from Halo. So, like, it's a long line of like suicidal warriors that would go and deal with like times of crisis within the Covenant, and so or before it was he was the hero of the Triali, which is the race of the elites within the Covenant. So maybe that might be the direction like maybe the Golden Guard at one point. Maybe he was probably like maybe like a town hero of Gracefield, and like maybe when Bellas came around, maybe he corrupted it into like being like the right hand man of the Emperor of the Empress Coven, maybe. I don't know.
People who have ever been in Gravesfield that were captured by the witch were Philip and his brother. We don't know of anybody else who were human that went over into Bonesboro.
But it's been several decades since then, so I guess I'm guessing there's probably like, and also keep in mind, Hunter's probably 16 years old, so I'm guessing there's probably like been like a whole line of Golden Guards since like the 1600s.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but then again, if we remember, Bella started taking over the Boiling Isles 50 years ago. So there has to be like a chain of something that happened 50 years, in between. So it's like if Philip Whittabane was trying to find the collector and trying to live long enough to, find out what he was trying to search for. I mean, there's still a lot of questions that we don't know about, and I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. But yeah, there's just so many things that we just were revealed piece by piece in this episode. And again, the most surprising thing that we saw was that Darius was even able to give Hunter a phone and his own Penstagram account and saying, hey, just interact with people your age, which I thought was actually pretty cool. And also that he wasn't able to reveal Emperor Bellows the fact that not only about the phone and that, he wasn't going to like gather up these kids from Hexside over to the Emperor's Coven, but also he knew about the secret palisman. So you remember that every palisman goes over to Bellows because of what he does with it. So I mean,
one thing I was quite, but now we learn that Darius doesn't like, doesn't dislike Golden Guard because he's above him. He dislikes him because he's so loyal to the Emperor, and like he seems to now have like he seems to like Hunter a little bit now because he's actually willing not to to go against orders.
Yeah, I mean, he even said even before he left and before the episode began, you always do what you're told to do. So he kind of says it like really begrudgingly. It's like, we know you're the Emperor's favorite because you always do what he says.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So now it seems that he seems to be getting some admiration from Darius because he will not do what, he's told to do. So that'll be interesting, actually. And
that is very interesting. I would love to see more about that.
Here's the thing about this, like, we don't know what they talk about, like this whole will of the Titan. Like, the Hunter's, path right now is that he is, the Titan has got big plans for him, and but we don't know what these big plans are, and we don't even know if, Here's the thing about this. I think somewhere down the line, I think Hunter's going to question his own destiny. Like, he's going to say, okay, I've been told that, I'm the goal, the Titan has supposedly got all these big things for me, but has the Titan ever told me that himself? And he's going to start self-questioning, what his purpose is actually is, in that. And also, there's one thing I think we're kind of neglecting to mention, which I've mentioned, some fans are also mentioning, is that Hunter is actually a Grimwalker. And actually, it's Bellows, his whole backstory might actually be a lie, and that he's actually been, Bellows actually created him, rather than actually, him actually ever having a family or ever existing.
It's hard to say because, even we mentioned this in last week's episode when we saw the blueprints of the Grimwalker on Philip's cave, that maybe he's the Grimwalker. So, yeah, maybe they're both Grimwalkers. At this point, I have no idea. And maybe
I think I've told my theory of Bellows, I think, previously, but I'll go over it again. So, my thoughts is, and definitely, I think that if you saw in the previous episode, when he was going back into his cave, we saw that actually he was in the process of actually making a Grimwalker himself. If you noticed, and so I kind of thinking that maybe if Philip Witherbane is Bellows, the likelihood is that he's not Philip Witherbane in the physical sense. He's probably been creating Grimwalkers and transferring himself into different Grimwalkers. As every body starts to decay or starts to die because of the curse that he might have. So
exactly, and like I said in the season 1 episode of Casual Chats, that this is going into Naruto territories, where Orochimaru, whenever that his body is decaying, he has to transfer his soul and his well-being into every person that he sees. And that was one of the reasons why he wanted Sasuke, was because not only was his body giving out, but he also has the Sharingan, which is eye technique that he can be able to see far up ahead people's techniques. So that's why he wanted his body so badly. So I guess if over time the body is starting to decay and he needs to transfer over to other bodies so his purpose can be fulfilled, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think that was pretty much our episode of the Owl House in regards to...
Oh, yeah, that's right. We also forgot. Luce and Amity were in here, too.
Oh, yeah, they were, weren't they? Yeah, sorry, I do apologize, everyone. So,
to be fair, let's be honest. I know that a lot of Lumity fans were excited about, Luce and Amity are together, but to be quite honest, I didn't really care about it as much. Well, I think that, in my opinion, this was all these people have theories about our show. Let's basically reference it and let's be self-aware. When they were walking over to find out about this author of this book, who, by the way, I found the name, it was Mildred Featherwhite, and by the way, it sounds more like a somebody from the Boiling Isles more than a human, unless they're just trying to be all mystical and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so they were talking about who is the author of The Good Witch Azor, and then Luce was like, maybe it's Ida, and she's writing all of these stories because she feels like she's closeted. And then Amity's like, maybe it's your mom when she was a teenager, and it's like, what?
Yeah, they're pretty much self-aware at this point, and they were going through all the theories that all the fans have come up with, which to be honest with you is actually very clever. So it
is clever and funny, and even with when we find out that it was Tiny Nose, or I'm sorry, Tenella Nosa, who was the one who was working with Tibbles and Bartholomew. That it just turned out that Tibbles found the books washed ashore a year ago and has been trying to sell them over to the Book Nook, and the only person who's been buying the books is Amity, which we kind of knew that already. We knew this in a previous episode that they were washed ashore when Luce was trying to do some research on Philip Witherbane. But then even with another self-aware jab, it's you were expecting something dramatic, weren't you? It's yeah, we kind of were, actually. We were hoping that this was going to lead into something cool, but no, it just so happens to be oh, yeah, we knew that this was going to be an interesting theory that you were going to be really invested in, but it just turned out that it wasn't. Lol.
Yeah, but no, I think to be fair though, I think we actually do know that the author is now human, and that
from the beginning.
Yeah, but
we knew that already from the beginning.
thing.
I know, but I mean, I think it kind of confirms now that I guess I should tell you when you think about it. Actually, that's because remember when we heard that we saw like the news article that the books have been washed up on shore, and
exactly.
we thought that Amity found them, and that's the reason why she's got the books. And
yes,
now that he found out that they sold them off to this, and actually there's another point actually I want to make here and about this, and that's the one thing I've always complained about Pixar movies. Do you know what that's always been?
What's that?
Regionalization. So like
yeah,
exactly. So if you think about it, like here's what's his name? I do apologize, everybody. Names just go flying out of my head. And
whose name?
It was Tibbles. Yeah, Tibbles. There we go.
Yeah, Tibbles. Yeah.
So Tibbles. Basically, he's basically been doing what kind of like Pixar and like various other movie studios have been doing. He's basically been regionalizing the books. So like they're there for like the Boiling Isles audience. If you remember, like in Inside Out, when they were changing like the food that the kid was like eating.
Yeah, because in the American version, Riley doesn't like broccoli on her pizza.
Yeah.
And in the Japanese version, it was changed over to green bell peppers because Japanese kids do not like green bell peppers.
Exactly. So there was that, and then also they changed around the vision in Riley's dad, where he was thinking about football, but instead here in the British version, but then in the American version he was thinking about hockey and or another sport. Or like in Canada, he was thinking about hockey. So like that's one thing that the Owl House was actually pointing out. Like they were this is what happens when you regionalize stuff like to fit for the domestic audience, if you will. So like you had Amity this entire time thinking that the author was like from the Boiling Isles, and like the books actually were actually made in the Boiling Isles, and then you had Luz thinking that the author was human this entire time. Or then you had both of them thinking, oh wait a second, maybe they can go between realms. That's the confusion that this kind of stuff that creates when you think about it.
Yeah, and then it turned out to be for nothing because Tibbles just decided to alter it so that he can make a buck. He was just doing a massive scam, but the massive scam turned out to be completely useless. So, yes, the character is human this entire time, and there is no portal that this author was able to transfer between worlds. So, nope. That didn't happen.
Well, at least we got the thing at the end when the Willow and her team find Luz and Amity, and then she shows her like on the pentagram basically what they've all been up to, and they find that Hunter's in the middle of like their friendship pretty much.
Yeah, so, that was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, it is. And to be honest with you, though, like I think we are going to get eventually like this reconciliation amongst all our characters, where Hunter either comes to a realization, and I think Luz and Amity will bury the hatchet with Hunter at some point.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, and we know that we are going to get another Luz and Amity episode next week, because this is the episode where Luz is going to convince Amity to join the underground witch duels.
Mm-hmm. So, by the way, I'm actually looking forward to that episode, because if it's if it's going to be like if it's going to be like the whole theme is going to be underground fight, I think this is going to be a really cool episode. So I'm really looking forward to this one.
The first rule of the underground witch duels: we do not talk about the underground witch duels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember it's going to be like, the underground wrestling scene in the 90s. That was really cool. So,
possibly, yeah.
We'll see.
So, I'm really excited about this one for sure. And the next time that we're going to be seeing Hunter is in 2 weeks from now with Hollow Mind, where Luz and Hunter are going to be entering into a mindscape, and there's going to be a whole bunch of big reveals. So,
well, if you remember the screenshots that were released, and so we haven't seen. There's that screenshot of them going through an art, like some kind of like weird art gallery of like I kind of thinking that they're going to go into Hunter's mind. I think, and they're gonna like and like the same way that they went to like understanding Willow, they went through like her mind as well. Like I kind of thinking that they're going to go through Hunter's brain, and like they're going to unpick like all the propaganda that's been fed into his mind and make him feel like really unsure about himself.
Or maybe they'll go into Belos's mind. That will blow my freaking mind away.
Oh, actually, that would I don't know. We don't know what the nightmare hellscape's going to be, but to be honest with you, given how screwed up Hunter is, would you be surprised if it was his brain that he went into?
I guess maybe that's possible.
Yeah, and
but regardless, next week is going to be really, really cool. I'm really looking forward to it. And if it is the clip that we've been seeing, this is the first episode we're going to see Luz in Ida's jacket, so this is going to be great.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to be talking about the Owl House. We're going to be talking about Reaching Point, and good grief. I mean, we know Dana Terrace loves to up the ante every single time in regards to emotion, but never did I think we were ever going to get to Parents' Day levels of emotion in regards to an episode. And for those of you who do not know, there is an episode in Hey Arnold known as Parents' Day, and this is the episode that basically asked the question about Arnold's parents. Because for those of you who aren't familiar with Hey Arnold, Arnold does not live with his parents, he lives with his grandparents in their boarding house. And so there was an episode called Parents' Day which addressed what happened to Arnold's parents at the as of the time. Anyone who's familiar with the Jungle movie knows what happened next. But this episode was an emotional episode because it was Arnold, not really understanding what had happened to his parents, and he'd only kind of known about, what he knew from Grandpa's, outrageous stories that he used to tell about them every single night. And so then he asked for, the official truth about what had happened, and then obviously he got the truth, and it was, there was all sorts of, emotions around that, and then we got to, kind of an acceptance, really, of Arnold going to Parents' Tournament weekend with his grandparents and then winning not winning the thing, but obviously we're beating Helga and the Helga's Saki's family and everything. So I mean that had also emotion, had a lot of musical accompaniments and everything like that. It was one of the best Hey Arnold episodes, bar Helga on the couch, if you do get into Hey Arnold at any point. Reaching Point for the Owl House is on par basically with this episode that I've just talked about. And so there's a lot to go through here, I think.
Yeah, so I think that one of the reasons why a lot of people were really looking forward to Reaching Out was because
sorry. Oh, good grief. Why do I call it Reaching Point?
I don't know. But anyway, so the reason why they were looking forward to Reaching Out was because a lot of the clips were showing off, you have Luce and Amity, and they're going to be going through this underground witch duel. What's that going to look like? And yeah, the reason why that a lot of people were also really scared about this was because they feared that this was going to be the episode where Luce and Amity were going to break up or something major was going to happen. But this was a plot twist that nobody, and I repeat, nobody was expecting. Mm-hmm. So it starts off with Luce receiving a notification from her phone, which says that, she has to meet up with her mother about something. And then she keeps ignoring it, and so she is looking really devastated. She's not being herself. And then we have Amity telling her that she's going to be signing up for the Bonesboro Witch Brawl because she wants to win a belt that her father won many years ago because she's not really connecting with him. And so Luce decided, okay, well, why don't we just, join this one instead of, your father wanting you to join the Witches' Coven, which the tryouts are happening. And we see that Amity is no longer interested. I mean, we saw in season 1 that she was determined to be in the Emperor's Coven. That was her dream. And then she realizes that she doesn't want that anymore. This was something that her mother wanted. And so now she's joining in this brawl so that she can be able to win this belt to impress her father, to say, hey, I can be able to make my own decisions and this is what I want to do. Can you at least notice me? And so, yeah, I think that the way that the episode starts off, it's it really just gravitates to you. It's what's going to happen in terms of this witch duel and, what is Luce hiding? And so it brings up a lot of questions.
But going back to Alador just for a second, I mean, he put in a line when he said to Amity, oh, well, I was a goof when I was doing all of that. And I didn't really have much direction. And, in a way, that's, you can sort of sympathize with that in a way because, I mean, in regards to the way that, Odalia and Alador's marriage works, I mean, Odalia basically gives him direction and, Alador just kind of carries it out. Pretty much. And so, so I guess I can sort of sympathize with Alador in a way when he says, well, I didn't really have much direction when I was, when I was that age, I didn't know what I was doing and things like that. In a way, you can sort of sympathize with Alador when he says, oh, I don't want that for you because, I didn't know where I was going to end up if I didn't end up with your mother or something like that. That's a place you can sympathize with in regards to a character. So he just wants the best for Amity. And so, of course, there's that to sort of sympathize with. But at the same time, he needs to also say, well, you need to, you've been missing out so much on my life because you've been so busy, just, doing work the entire time. So, I mean, that's to his detriment as well. pretty much, because he's not listening to his daughter, he's not listening to anybody. So, and even
he's just concentrating on his work. He's making all the abominations for the Emperor, and as we saw in Escaping Expulsion, that the abomatons are now being used for the Emperor's Coven, and we see Kikimora controlling them. So, I mean, even in the last episode that we talked about, where we saw in his pentagram that now there's an Abomaton 2.5, so they've been upgraded since then, and we saw that with the alarm that it's on the Abomaton's head. And then we have also these other features as well. So I think that we see that Alador is like really, really focusing on his work and not so much on his children. And he's letting, his wife take over. And we know how pretty controlling that Odalia is. I mean, we knew about the amulet that Amity was wearing, where she's able to control everything that she says. But then we realized that Edric and Emra were wearing amulets as well, but they were not amulets for them to be controlled. They were wearing amulets to hide what they really looked like. And I have to say, that is pretty messed up if they were forced to wear that so that they can be able to look, quote unquote, perfect.
Yeah. So, I mean, Edric takes his off, and basically he looks like his real self, which I'm not gonna make fun of him. Like, I don't.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like an awkward teenager. Yeah.
Yeah, like, but that's everybody. Pretty much, like, it's so. By the way, Maureen Mark got it nearly on the note, pretty much, like what he actually looked like, behind the jewel, and like so, like he called that out pretty well. And
it's actually funny because this was foreshadowed in a drawing that Dana Terrace did when. We have a scene in which when Edric is playing video games and then Emra's in the background saying, "You need your glasses." So this was actually foreshadowed a while ago.
Mm-hmm. So, and by the way,
another thing that was foreshadowed was the glasses as well, because Dana Terrace drew a drawing of Darius and Alador, and Alador had the exact same glasses that Edric is wearing.
Yeah, and Emra just kind of looks a bit flustered, if anything. So, like, she has
longer hair.
Yeah,
she has longer hair and she has acne, which again is very normal for a teenager.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so, that's pretty sad, actually. Like, they put these jewels on them to make them look not normal, pretty much. So, like, that was that. But then they give them to Amity, and obviously she looks super cute, which, obviously impresses Luce quite a lot, as you can probably imagine. So, that was a bit of a highlight for all the Lumini fans to have a look at. But mind you, Edric gets some, more character progression in this, because, he just wants to be taken seriously as a character, and, and that's something that King can sympathize with, because he went through his own, arc in that regard. So, he helps him along with that, and I mean, Edric obviously does a bit of a screw up with the potion. I mean, we'll talk about that later on, but I mean, Edric, all he wants is just he's been basically the butt of the joke in regards to Edric and Emma is kind of like character traits in the way that they portray him, and now they give him an episode where he can actually be useful and be helpful, and he ends up being kind of initiated into the bad girl coven thanks to Ida. So.
Yeah, and also we see that Edric and Emra are not just good illusionists. Edric knows how to do beast covening and a little bit of potion making, and Emra knows how to do healing. So they're varying up their techniques.
Yeah, which is interesting because, I mean, I guess maybe they haven't been, put into a track yet, or have, yet to join a coven. So,
no, they haven't joined a coven yet.
No, so I'm guessing that's interesting, really. So I think that maybe they just, because I thought somewhere down the line they would have said, "Oh yeah, I want to join a coven," or they would have been forced into a coven.
They're still 16 years old. They're still in Hexside, so I take it that they're still learning.
I guess so, but I don't know actually how they end up in the covens. That's all it works really. I get that they have they have the tattoos put on their arms and everything, but they actually haven't specifically said when that happens. Or
it doesn't exactly say that. I mean, we even saw with Alador wanting Amity to be in the trials for the Emperor's Coven. So I guess it depends on what trials you're put into, and when and if you are accepted into the trials, does that mean that you have to go through the process that we learned of in the last episode when Hunter was talking to Steve about this is what we learned when we had to go through the Emperor's Coven. We had to do the mazes, we had to be in the forest, we had to do all this stuff. So that means that Amity would have had to, if she passed the trials.
And how sad is that for a family dynamic, that she would be more than happy to leave her family behind to basically get away from them, just be in the Emperor's Coven?
Yeah.
Yeah, good grief. Like the more you delve into it, the more sad you get.
Oh, speaking of sad, we'll
Oh,
get to that later.
we'll get to that later. Yeah, we haven't scratched the surface of this episode. This episode was so good. So,
Yeah.
Warden Raff is the champ of this Bonesborough brawl, which I think is awesome. So, like,
Yeah.
and I guess at one point, I guess you could say we kind of got a little bit of a rematch between Ida and Warden Raff when that potion goes wrong. But so the whole idea is that he's the champion, and Amity goes in as the Mighty Mittens, which
I love that name, by the way.
Here I come to save the day.
Mighty Mittens is here to slay.
Oh, good grief! I can't believe I'm making that reference in 2022. But she comes in, she kicks ass, and but funny enough, like you can see that she's not like invincible. So like she gets like a whole rock thrown at her, and she gets knocked to the side, ends up injuring her knee. At one point,
Yeah.
It was kind of like I don't know if that was like a clever reference to like when she got injured in the sports episode in season 1. Yeah, like and so
I mean, even Luce brought it up. It's like, this reminds me of the Grudge Me match that we had, remember? So yeah.
Like and by the way, like in this whole thing with Luz, she is doing absolutely everything to kind of distract herself from the thing that we're going to talk about at the very end of this discussion. But which is a natural reaction to have. When you're going through something tragic. I mean, maybe we should just bring it up now, just because I feel like we're just kind of like delaying the inevitable. But the sad thing that we learned in this episode is that Luz's dad has passed away. And not like in this episode, but like a couple of years ago when she was younger. And so
she was younger.
Yeah, and this time around, like, they used to go have this ritual where she would go out with her mother and they go pick flowers for each other, and then they go visit his grave and they spend the whole day together. And so they would basically have that day, on August 15th. We've actually learned.
Well, I mean, actually, according to the calendar, it says August 22nd.
Oh, August 22nd. I do apologize. So August 22nd, he passed away. And so they're apart for this one, and it affects Luz very badly because she constantly has it on her mind, and she constantly thinks about it, and so this ends up kind of like affecting every single interaction she has with everybody, including Ida, including King, including the Blight twins, including Amity herself as well. Because she ends up upsetting her because the Abomaton comes back to come retrieve Amity because he found that mysterious dagger, and then she basically tries to stop it, but then it starts its alarm off again, and then it reminds her of the alarm from her phone that keeps going off to remind her about the event that's happening about her dad passing away, and so she ends up attacking the Abomaton and knocking the alarm off, and that sets off Alador because he thinks that Amity is in trouble. So, and then she ends up lying to Amity about it again. Here's the thing that we don't notice about this. This is kind of strike 2 for Luz, because she lied about building the portal door to Amity, and now she's lied about doing this with the Abomaton. I mean, how many times is she going to lie to her?
Well, I mean, I don't blame Luz for, being this way, because maybe she fears that Amity, would be like really upset about all of this. And so she tries to push it off to the side. I don't think she's built enough trust yet in order for her to express her feelings to other people, because, I mean, she's never had that before.
Exactly.
She's never had
But at the same time, I mean, Amity's also, not very trusting of relationships either. I'm kind of thinking we're kind of building up to a bust up a little bit, because we're I guess Amity is trying to be as understanding as possible, and she is, and good on her for being so, because I've been saying to Luz, if I ever saw all this kind of going on, it's like, you should keep Amity, she's a keeper. She's putting up with your shit. I mean,
exactly. I mean, we even saw this in the Follies of the Coven's Day parade, that the easiest thing that they could have done was that Amity would have seen the videos that Luz was sending to her mother, and then she would have figured it out. But then she said, no, I respect your privacy. But then we have this moment in which she's like, why are you hiding this from me? I don't know if I can trust you. But instead she says, I know that you're hiding something. Why don't you tell me about it? So she's being open to having Luz confess to what's going on. So there's a very healthy relationship with communication and trust that you don't really see in a lot of TV shows or movies. It's always like really toxic. So kudos for them for being able to portray a realistic way of how to have a healthy relationship involving with communication and trust, because that's some of the hardest things to do in a relationship.
Exactly, and so yeah, like Lumity right now is a great ship. Like it is, it is saying, hey, and also it's a great example for kids as well. It's like, oh hey, this is what you should do in these situations, and so I think, dare I say, like, I mean, say what you ever want about the LGBTQ controversies in Disney right now or anything like that, but I mean, if Lumity ends up being like the best example of like a way a young relationship should flourish, then that's a great thing. Like for a lot of people. So, but I think the one thing I would say is that like, how many times do you end up having Luz like, not being fully upfront with Amity about what's going on, and Amity ends up getting hurt as a result, or Amity ends up getting like, not getting what she needs as a result of that. Like, how much do you test Lumity at this point?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping by next week that Luz can be able to learn more about being open, because as you know, next week's episode, Ida reveals to Luz about how she met Rain and about their relationship. So maybe this will be able to open up to saying, hey, Luz, you should trust your girlfriend more because she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I mean, it kind of makes me wonder where we are going with Lumity at the moment, because I mean, I can't help feeling that. Do you remember when we had the library episode back in season 1, and Luz made the comment of like, oh hey, maybe I can befriend my rival. Like I kind of think that's foreshadowing for something. A little bit like, these two used to be lovers and then all of a sudden they became enemies.
There's a lot of foreshadowing that's been happening. I mean, you saw like Hunter's Pentagram username. That's the same name reference as the book that Luce and King wrote in season 1. And speaking of season 1, the bat that Edric owns is the same bat from Adventures of the Elements, when, Luce and Ida went over to the knee, and then, they would return to the knee again in Eclipse Lake. So there's a lot of foreshadowing that is going on that we see in the first season that's being incorporated into the second season.
Yeah, so like it's saying that, oh, hey, these events happened. And these are what it's affecting now, which is really good.
Yes.
Like, it's aware of itself, which I think
Absolutely.
is the best thing you can have for a show. So, yeah, but I think, I mean, in regards to Luz's dad, like, good grief, there was one messed up comment I made at the very end after we watched it, which is like, if the Emperor wanted to manipulate Luz in some way, like, he could make a Grimwalker out of his dad.
Oh my God.
How crazy would that be?
That would be so messed up.
Oh, but like what Bellows is like in regards to manipulation and stuff. Would you like? I mean, and eventually he's going to end up in the human realm anyway. Like, and maybe they're going to come to blows, or something's going to happen in the human realm. I don't know. And mind you, that's one thing actually we didn't mention actually when they interrogated Warren Raff after he got defeated at the Bonesborough Brawl. And like, the one thing that he mentioned is that, the Day of Unity is going to be where they unify with the Titan, and that they're going to be, going to be transported over to this new world. But they're suggesting that the new world may not be as open to magical creatures as Emperor Bellows is letting on to be. So, which by the way,
this is for both wild magic and no magic.
Yeah, exactly. But this is, I can't help thinking that this is my theory on that the witches are not native to the Boiling Isles. Here's my thing about this, because, what was going on during the 1600s?
The witch trials.
Exactly. And so, while all the humans were going around trying to hunt around witches and, put them on these, awful trials and then eventually kill them at the very end, like, what do you think all the other witches did? Like,
I mean, if we remember from history, they had to flee or they had to hide their identities.
Yeah, exactly. And what thing gave them the ability to flee to the Boiling Isles?
Well, I mean, from what we remember with, from what we remember with yesterday's lie, that, a witch was able to, take the two brothers into Bonesborough.
So there has to be, and also there's Titan's blood. Titan's blood is able to leak between the human world and into Bonesboro. So
exactly, that's it. So, they say that the Titan blood creates holes in dimensions. So the likelihood is that they found those holes in the dimensions and they fled to the Boiling House because of that. So, yeah, so I think it's all coming together. I think, my theory is that those witches that are there now on the Boiling House should probably not have been there to begin with. They ended up fleeing there because they were fleeing persecution from the humans.
Possibly, yeah.
So I think that I think they originally came from Earth. My personal opinion, but that's what I'm going with at the minute. So.
Yeah, and speaking of yesterday's lie, now that we know about the context that Luce's father had passed away as opposed to like divorce that everybody else said, this makes this whole situation with Camila even more tragic. Not only has she lost her husband, but her daughter is now trapped in another dimension, and who knows, how she's going to get back, and who knows what she's doing over there, because, of course, Camila doesn't know, about the situation that Luce is under. So I'm sure that she is feeling so much fear and anguish and pain.
Yeah, but here's the thing about this. I think this is where V comes in. Me personally, I think V's going to turn around to Camila and say, "Well, why are we sitting here when we could do something?" So I think, dare I say, I think they might end up going back to that crazy guy again, and in there and say,
Jacob, the conspiracy nut.
Conspiracy nut, and say, "Look, this is what's really." Here's the thing. Do you remember at the end of Amphibia? Of that episode when they went back to when they went back to Amphibia and they went through the dimensional door, and then Mrs. Boonchoy confronted Mr. X. Dare I say they could probably confront Jacob in the same way and say, "Look, we're going to tell you everything, and we're going to need your help in order to find the things that we need." And so maybe he probably might say, "Okay, then I'll go along with it. Just don't hurt me." So, yeah.
I mean, he'll have to really be really open-minded and kind of understanding in order for him to comprehend all of this.
Dare I say he's probably open-minded enough to do it.
So. I wouldn't be surprised, considering that he actually does have some magical stuff that will be really, really helpful in their situations. I mean, remember, he had the Hexam Hold cards, and he also had a training wand. This could be really helpful.
Oh, so he might have other stuff as well.
It's true, yeah. We don't know.
Maybe he does have it. Maybe here's the thing about this. Maybe he might have Titan's blood, or maybe he actually might have something else.
Ooh,
oh wait,
that's true.
Hey, I found this door, but I don't know what it does. Or what powers it. And maybe they'll have their own door.
Maybe I was wandering around and I found this blue liquid. I don't even know what it is. It's not water. It's not like a type of energy fuel that I've ever seen. And maybe V recognizes that that's Titan's blood. Maybe we can use that to build a portal door.
Yeah. But speaking on that, I still believe. Remember when we had knocking on Hoodie's door, and remember they took blood from King to see what he was. I gotta think that's probably maybe that's probably his Titan's blood that King has. I think.
So do you think that King's a Titan?
I think he's a descendant of the Titan, or maybe the creatures that he is probably evolved from the Titan. Maybe.
Well, I mean, we will know about that pretty soon because
you keep in mind, I'm sure we mentioned this in the past because dinosaurs are evolved from birds. Birds are evolved from dinosaurs.
That. So we talked about that.
Yeah, maybe King's evolved from these massive Titans that were walking around at one point.
Yeah, I mean, we will know about that in a few weeks because that's when we'll know more about, King's backstory. I mean, we even saw in a picture that, they were able to find, similar people looking like King. So maybe that'll answer a question that will probably open things up.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, we're all speculating here, so I think let's walk away from the Owl House just for now, as fun as this conversation's been. Anyway, we are now going to move on to the Owl House, and this is the episode where, so again, we were expecting an episode where it's just going to be oh, hey, this is how Eda met Rain, and this is all the the cutesy stuff that they get into. Nope. Why
do we keep falling for this?
Yeah, it was we are just suckers for this stuff, aren't we? It's just kind of we can't help ourselves. We just kind of wander in expecting like something else, and then nope, it's something completely and utterly different, and it throws us in like 3 different directions, and then finally we come out and like we just kind of feel like we have like wobbly heads as we go on. But it's a good feeling, not a bad feeling, thankfully.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a good feeling. It's a feeling that we've gone through many times, and yet at the same time, every time that we read a plot synopsis, we're going to be like, oh, this is just a light episode because we went through something heavy, but nope. The same thing happened with knocking on Hootie's door. It's like, oh, Hootie's gonna be helping out Luz, Ida, and King. I'm sure that that's gonna be fun. Looking back on it is like, oh my god. Well, let's see. We have the introduction of Rain with the fact that Ida and Lilith are going over to Hexside, and then Ida gets herself into massive trouble again because she's such a prankster. And then we have Principal Faust, which, by the way, a clever reference for those who don't know who Faust is. So, Faust is the name of a classic German legend based off of Johann Georg Faust, and it is based off of a tragic play where Faust is highly successful yet dissatisfied with his life, decides to make a pact with the devil in exchange for his soul for unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasure. So we know that Dana Terrace is a huge fan of like Hemerdemius Bosch and various other forms of artists who depict like monsters and demons and ghouls and that kind of stuff. I mean, we see that a lot on her social media, where she loves posting up like MC Escher and various things. So when I hear that there's a principal named Faust, I wasn't too surprised.
Oh, by the way, actually, we forgot to mention this. Actually, shout out to Dana. Actually, she unfortunately she ended. I don't know if you realize. I don't know if you know about this, Patricia. She ended up in hospital.
I think she was having an appendectomy.
Yeah, exactly. So, by the way, I hope she gets well soon, and shout out to her. And by the way, she's asking for people to send pictures of their pets to cheer her up. So, like, if you get a chance to send a picture of your pets, then definitely do that for her. So,
if that's the case, I have to send a picture of Riley.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I got some pictures of my sister's cat somewhere, and I think she'll like all of those. So, well, I'll ask permission before I send them, though. But anyway, going back to the Owl House. The one thing though before we actually get into like the meat and potatoes of the backstory is that Luz is learning pretty quickly how to do different types of combinations of glyphs, which is pretty cool because she's now really starting to master wild magic. Pretty good. And basically, they need to give these things in because, they need to. I mean, Luz has been quite through a lot emotionally, I think we can say, over the last couple of episodes. And now I think she needs a bit of development in that. But obviously, it's because she's wanting to distract herself from like missing her mom and things like that. And
yes, exactly. And for those who are complaining in the last episode, it's like, oh, she traveled back in time to see Philip Wittebane, and all she learned was like that, what was it, like that levitation one? It's like, come on, guys, give her a break.
Yeah,
she was able to learn things in like 2 or 3 months that it took Philip Wittebane decades to learn.
Exactly. Like, I mean, Luz is slowly turning into our Avatar Aang at this point, I think, and it's like this is what Korra should have been. No, but Luz is developing, which is I think is very good. But obviously she's carrying emotional baggage with her, which is very sad. And
I don't blame her for doing this because we saw in the last episode that she was celebrating the anniversary of her dad dying by trying to block it away from Amity and everybody else and distracting herself for helping Amity being a part of this witch duel, and then she decides to join it herself because Amity's doing such a great job at it, and so she was holding it in. And then we saw in the episode before that we saw that Philip Wittebane was being such a jerk ass, and she thought that Philip was going to be the person to help her get back home, but that didn't turn out very well. And then we saw in the episode before that Amity knew that Luz was doing the phone messages to her mom. So yeah, Luz has been going through a lot over the past few weeks.
She has, yeah, like she's been through disappointment, she's been through like all sorts of emotions, and so like it's I really hope though that they're not going down like the Steven Universe route. Like I don't want them to like do like a psychological destruction of like Luz. Like she's such a delightful character, and I think she's someone you can look up to as somebody. And I don't know how I would feel if like they did that with her. Really, like, it's like, she ends up in a nightgown and like in some like in a hospital, like, having to like work out like all the baggage and everything like that. Like, not saying that like that's not a something that they could do, but I don't know. Like, we've already seen it already with Steven Universe, and it's like it's kind of like it's had a mixed reaction, I think, in regards to that. But
I mean, we did praise it when that episode first came out. That wow, they were able to go there when a lot of shows would just stay away from it.
Yeah.
But
in the context of Steven Universe, that makes sense because he's been through. It makes a lot of sense. But in the context of Luz, I don't know. I don't think that. I just feel like they shouldn't go in that direction. But that's just me. Like,
fair enough.
So unfortunately, also keep in mind they also killed off the main character too, Beefy Bob. No. Like, yeah. Oh.
Anyway, so the spells that we saw her learn there was a wind spell where she was able to like do like a little tornado. Then there was a water fountain spell where she was able to release some water. There was a petrification spell where she was able to turn Bob into stone. But then there was the monster arm spell, which there was a monster arm that was like sticking out like crazy, and then Hootie ate it because of course he did.
Yeah.
So
by the way, that's actually a reference to like the fight that she was in with Bellows, if you recall.
Yeah, that's a great little callback. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
it sounds to me like she kind of like has like taken on board what. Here's the thing about this. Like, I'm a bit disappointed. It is looking more and more likely that Philip Witherbane is Bellows now, and like I think it was pretty much given away. I think at the end of the other episode, but I don't know. Like I just feel like I'm still kind of like holding out like there's some kind of other twist to it. Like, it's like, this isn't like, I mean, the one thing I'm thinking of is that, he's still, like, he's not actually, like, physically is, Philip Witherbane. Like, he's like, I'm hoping that it's still, like, the story of, like, he's transferring himself into, like, other, like, Grimwalkers. That, that's how he's been keeping himself alive. And that's why he's keeping Hunter around, because, like, he's going to transfer himself into Hunter in order to, like, relive, like, all the bits of his life that he's, like, missed out on. Because he's been, he spent such a long time in the demon realm because of the human realm. Yeah. So, I'm still kind of holding out for that, but anyway, so that's where we are with Luz. Like, she's learning a lot more glyphs, and she's becoming a more powerful witch because of it. So,
absolutely, especially since she's like still experimenting.
Yeah, exactly. So, Ida can see that she's trying to distract herself with all of this stuff, and so she decides to to tell Luz the story about when she met Rain Whispers all those years ago. So, this is actually a very cute episode because now all the adult characters are kids. Because it's being told, it's kind of like a bit of it kind of reminds me a little bit like Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time when you're playing as young Link and like you see like all the you see like all the young characters like at the very beginning and then you travel back and forward in time and then you see them as adults. So like
it very Muppets-esque, yeah.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So so you see, Ida and Lilith were incredibly close.
Yes.
It's almost sad that like listening to them kind of like saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to take on the world. We're going to do it together and stuff like that." Like it's almost Rambo-esque. Like, when Rambo talks about like, "Oh, we're going to drive the car until the wheels fall off," and like just see then you see him break down after that. Like it's almost kind of like flashbacks to that really. Like
I mean, especially since this takes place 7 months before the Coven's Day trials, where Lilith would eventually curse Ida because she was so jealous of, how much powerful that she is. And this was back when they were really, really close, and they were not only like really close in terms of like being friends, because according to what Ida said, that's her only friend. Like, before, Rain came into her life, Ida didn't have any friends. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of like similar to what Luz is going through, in which like, other than her mom, Luz didn't have any friends in school either.
Yeah. So, we end up going into the school. And by the way, it looks like, Darius, Odalia, and Alador were all friends at one point. So I think
they were friends at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, and also we get a shot of Bosch's mom as well. Like, I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, really? I didn't notice.
Yeah, there was a free-eyed girl that walked past in the background. So,
cool.
Yeah, so we got that, got a glimpse of her as well, and also we got to see. There's going regards to the adults. I think we saw Willow's dads as well.
Willow's dads. Yeah, I did see them. Yes.
Yeah, so we saw all of them, but obviously our important characters basically Ida and Rain. I think in all of this.
Yes.
I mean, obviously before we get to that, I mean, so Principal Bump is vice principal at this point, which
yes, he's the vice principal.
But here's the thing: like this is causing a bit of debate amongst the Owl House fans because it's causing saying it's a continuity error because the founding of Hexside was basically when Bump when he was younger and basically all the other ones like they were trashing like the old school and building another school on top of it. And that's basically, but they're saying that's basically how he became principal. So this whole introduction of Principal Fosh is creating a bit of a debate among like, well, that's creating a continuity error because why did he become principal, not Bump?
So because I mean, we can assume that this was when Ida was a little bit younger, so we can assume that this was like around the time in which she was getting her curse, and then maybe Faust was taken down, and then Principal Bump took over. So
no, like if you look in the apparently in the story, like Bump was like around like Luz's age, I think, when he actually when the rebellion of the school actually happened. So yeah, so that's where fans are debating, like, well, how come he didn't become principal after that? Like, and it's because he was the one who led the rebellion against the old school, or destroyed the old school, or whatever.
Interesting.
So yeah, now some people are debating like he probably wasn't old enough to be principal at that time, so obviously someone else took it over.
He definitely looks a lot younger. Yes.
Yeah. So, Vice Principal Bump is a very interesting character because he didn't have all his confidence at that point. Like he was young, he was naive. And he's, someone who's kind of just starting off at the very beginning, and also he's got this overbearing principal who just won't let anybody in that school breathe. Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of reminds me of in that episode where Principal Warts was going above and beyond just strict, and then Mr. Simmons said, Principal Warts, you're taking this way too far. I've seen you yell at all these kids, and I get it that there is a fine line with making sure that the school is in order with discipline, but there's such thing as taking it too far when the best school in Hexside got expelled because he was chewing too loudly or his shoes were too squeaky. It's okay, dude.
This guy's worse than Principal Watts. I think we can all agree. Yeah,
absolutely.
Dare I say he's probably worse than the Trunchville in Matilda.
Oh wow.
I mean that's a debate in itself, but I think
it is a debate in itself. Yeah, I mean especially since now we see Principal Bump throwing children inside the detention hall, and we know what the detention hall is in the first season. So yeah, it's interesting to say where Principal Bump started off and where he is now.
I love the bit when when Ida's in the principal's office and the principal says you fed the detention hall green gelatin, and he was it was his birthday. Which is kind of which is hilarious, but then kind of caring of because Ida does actually even though she's kind of a massive rebel and does all this chaos, she is really caring character. We knew that already. We know that already with Luz, but we now know that from a very young age she does really care about other people. And
absolutely, yeah, and I think that's why Ida had such a really close connection with Luz when she first came into the Boiling Isles, because I think that Ida sees Luz a little bit on herself.
Exactly. So we get into that, and then it's we hear about that Vice Principal Bump turns around to the principal and says, "Hey, look, these kids, all have are redeemable. They do have good characters." And so the principal holds into that and says, "Okay, take Ida to this competition to compete with all the other witches, and get one of those ribbons. And if you do get it, then great. But if you don't, then obviously you're both gone from the school." So obviously that's raises the stakes on that. And so here's the thing about this: they go to what is it called? If what I think is what it's called.
It stands for Instructing Future Witches of Tomorrow. Yeah. If what?
And to be honest, when they first go in, it looks like nothing, and I immediately thought, hang on a second, I remember going to these kind of these events like this, and it's this is kind of what they're like. They're very quiet and they're not very descriptive, and it's only until Tara comes into the scene that basically she starts brightening things up.
And then she decided that If What was a terrible name, and so she turned it into Help Enhance Coven Know-How, aka Heck.
So, here's the thing about this, though. I mean, we're skipping over a lot of stuff, but I'm starting to wonder, like, Terra is giving Rain, the potion at the moment in regards to. By the way, we'll get to the end of this, with the moment.
Everyone's going to get to the end of this.
But, I don't know, do you think Terra also herself might, like, somewhat be, like, cause, at the very end of, like, all, like, the competition and everything like that, like, she herself is somewhat showing kind of a bit of a rebellious side, because, like, she's even saying to, like, Ida and Rain is like, oh, hey, you guys got a rebellious angle, I like you two, and, like, she even spares, Vice Principal Bump and Ida basically being expelled and being fired from the school. So, like, I don't know, like, that's interesting. That she did that.
Maybe that she sees a lot of fire in them, and it's like, oh, this will be great Coven material. But I think that there is something there that we don't know about yet. But for now, a lot of people are saying that, Kikimora was bad enough, but Terra takes it up another level of just being a psychotic bitch.
Yeah, well, at least that's what we know for now. I mean, like, who knows what... I mean, we'll get to the end of this when we get to the end of the episode, but... Ida meets up with Rain, and it's as adorable as you imagine it to be. So,
it's so wonderful. Where we have Rain... introducing themselves to Ida, and they just hit it off right away. Like, it was, like, just so wonderful just seeing them together and seeing interact with one another. And we have Ida and Rain being able to just, do all of these things together. It's like, who's good at the strength, who's good at intelligence, who's good at, sheer willpower and all that kind of stuff. And they just immediately click. And Ida's never felt this way before about anybody. So this was such a great way of introducing these two characters that we know would have a stronger relationship later on.
By the way, when Ida says think fast and she throws, the grudge ball to Rain, Rain catches it, and at that moment, I think that's when Ida kind of like fell for Rain. I think at that point.
Yeah, especially since Ida assumed that Rain was just very intelligent and very smart because they had won 2 ribbons in a row. So I guess that she assumed that Rain would probably be very athletic. So, yeah, Ida was very surprised when she threw the grudge bee ball at Rain, and Rain was able to catch it like a boss.
Yeah, and now they started to look very cute. Okay, so basically, it's kind of funny though, because like they go through like all these trials, and then they go to like what they call the closing ceremony. By the way, this was like a smaller like the version of like the convention stall.
The convention episode. Yes,
convention,
you're right.
Yeah, exactly. So we go back into like the smaller like version of that arena. Terra then says that there's like going to be like a final thing that basically violates a load of rules, but she doesn't care because Terra. So so she puts everyone into like a vegetative maze, and then basically divides them both of them up into covens and wild witches. So the wild witches are allowed to use whatever magic they want, and then the other kids are like compressed to like using the magic that basically involves to their track. So Ida and Rain end up on different teams, and so but they end up getting separated anyway in all the chaos, and so the Coven team all decide they're going to gang up on Rain and take them in. But, Ida then basically turns on her own teammates and then throws them out of the arena. And then Terra picks up on this and realizes that, there's something more interesting going on here. So she basically dismantles the entire arena and puts Rain in one corner and puts Ida in another, and expects them basically to fight to the death. Pretty much. And so it looks like they're going to like have this massive fight, but in actual fact it turns into a cute dance routine, and basically they try to blast Terra. Which I was like, oh wow! And then it's almost like the finale to like 300, like when King Leonidas basically throws the spear, and like it just like catches the side of like the massive prince guy. So it's almost kind of like akin to that, and because it looks like she's blocked it all up, but in actual fact, like it has singed like a bit of a hair. So and you think like, oh, after that, like here comes an ass kicking, but thankfully enough, like she actually appreciates all the rebellionism in both of them, and decides to let them off the hook. And actually, even better than that, she actually turns around to as we said before, to Vice Principal Bump and to Ida, that Ida's not going to get expelled and Vice Principal Bump's not going to lose his job. So that all comes into fruition. And but then basically one of the things that seems to happen in the episode is that Lilith and Ida seem to be kind of parting ways a little bit as well in this episode, because
basically we knew from the very beginning that Lilith really wanted to be in the Empress Coven, and Ida does not. But we have a situation where she's just concentrating on being the best student at Hexside, and Ida's just worrying about like being a goofball. And so, yeah, we do see that separation there. But Ida, the reason why she wanted to do this competition in the first place was because she didn't want to be separated from her sister in Hexside, and she didn't want to be expelled. Now, I mean, you could argue that, she can see her sister at home, but what is she going to do at home, and what school is she going to be transferred over to,
Yeah, I was going to say, I would say that's probably better built up than, say for example, Captain Underpants, the first movie, when they were talking about, like, splitting the two characters up into two different classes, but, that's just me. But, the great thing is that, apparently, Rain has decided to transfer out of her other school, and has now decided to go with Hexside, and so they are.
Yeah, Rain went over to another school called St. Epiderm right before they transferred over to Hexside.
Mm-hmm. So, so then they... by the way, Rain is the person who introduced Ida to Appleblood. Pretty much.
Yeah, that's right.
For better, for worse.
For better, for worse. Yeah, because Ida was drinking another juice called Ghoul-Aid, which, and then there was another drink that Ida was drinking over at the gathering, which Rain also helped out with as well. But yeah, so this is where Ida first got introduced to Appleblood, and it all went downhill from there.
Pretty much. Yeah. So and this is one of the, sometimes I kind of like compare Ida to Rick Sanchez in some points, because it's like
yeah, or like Barney from The Simpsons when he first got a taste of Duff beer.
I don't think she's Barney. I think that's a bit.
I'm just talking about, like, where the
where have you been all my life? I remember that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that was really cute, in which when Ida was telling the story, and then Loose King and Hootie had fallen asleep, and then she's trying to think that Rain is doing okay, even though that she assumed that they have been brainwashed when we saw in Follies at the Coven's Head Parade. But yeah, let's get to the ending.
Okay, oh good grief. We were not expecting this ending at all. All. None of it. So
we know from Follies at the Coven's Day Parade that Tara had been brainwashing Rain with a tea that she's been giving them. And we knew this because if you remember from the previous episode, Ida's Requiem, that Rain was part of the Bards Against the Throne, aka the Bats. And the reason why is because they want to overtake and overthrow Emperor Bellows, because their rules over at the Coven was getting way too out of hand. So Kikimora captured Rain, and then when we saw in Follies at the Coven's Day Parade, we assumed that Tara was controlling Rain, and we saw the confrontation with Rain and Ida, that Rain had no recollections of what happened, and they told Ida to go away. But then the twist happens.
Yeah, this entire time, Rain has been whistling into the concoction and been changing the recipe, and they have not been brainwashed this entire time or losing their memory. So
exactly, and this is great foreshadowing, because this happened earlier in the episode when Ida was drinking the drink from the event and saying, like, oh man, even the junk they give us is junk. And then Rain whistled into the cup saying, drink this, and she's like, wow, this is delicious, how did you do that? And then they said, oh, you just change the sound waves and you can be able to alter it. And so that was great foreshadowing, because then we saw Rain whistling to the drink, which we assumed they were blowing it to keep it cool, and then they drank it and he was not affected with their memory at all.
Exactly. That's an incredible twist. Like, you would not expect that whatsoever. But then there's another. That's not all. Oh, that's not all. So, if you will recall, Darius did a pretty interesting twist with Hunter in the last episode, where he basically said that it was pretty cool that Hunter had rebelled pretty much against his emperor, in regards to finding these new witches, and that he was just going to also Darius himself said, I'm just going to be dumping these kids back at Hexside anyway because we weren't going to want them. And so he's even defying orders against the Emperor. Now, his abomination, his little abomination chibi thing that I think he has on his head, is now delivering secret messages over to Rain and is actually giving Rain the description of a draining spell that so the idea of this is, from what we can see on the plan that Darius has got hold of, is that they're going to plan to take all the witches from the Covens and surround them around the tower, and then something is basically going to drain all the magic up into the eclipse. Now, that's a discussion within itself, but before we even get to do that, Darius is in the Resistance, Rain is in the Resistance, and there's another thing about this too. I know this sounds really crazy, but I can't rule out Terra being part of that Resistance as well.
Which is interesting because, I mean, we knew how she treated Kikimora, saying, like, you have to stay in the parade and, you can't just leave us. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's like, is she? I don't know. I mean, from what we've seen in this episode, anything could happen.
Exactly. Like, I don't really see, if Terra turns around and says, I mean, here's the thing about this. Like, I still believe that, we are still going to, like, see, like, the Coven heads, like, all turn on each other. And, like, some of them are saying, oh, this is BS. We're not going along with this. We know something's up. And then we'll have all the other Coven heads saying, oh, no, this is for, like, the Day of Unity, or, like, the Great Journey, or, like, kind of like in Halo or something like that. And then they're all just going to, like, there's going to be this massive fight within the Empress Coven, and they're all just basically going to knock the shit out of each other, and that's basically how this is all going to play out. So I can see that happening in, like, some kind of finale of, like, for season 2. But I don't know, like, here's the thing, like, they all seem to be kind of like, catching on to, like, something isn't right here. Like, even Rawdon Wrath was, like, turning around saying, in the Reaching Out episode, that he was even having his doubts about that the Day of Unity was going to be a good thing for all, magical kind at this point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but mind you, now that we know that, let's get back to this plan. So, there is a draining spell that's going to happen on the Day of Unity, where all the members of the Covens are going to be gathered round the tower, and the magic is going to be sucked up through the tower and then shot up into the eclipse. Now, here's my theory on this. I don't think Emperor Belus no longer is the big bad guy of this show. I think it's the Collector.
Ooh, it's kind of like with Amphibia, in which, King Andreas isn't really the bad guy. It's the core.
Yeah, and so I think there is basically, if you remember Golden Axe, if you played the extended game, Death Adder was not the final boss in Golden Axe. There was Death Bringer, who basically lived in like in the basement basically of the castle. So there's part of me that believe that we're going to talk about this in Amphibia too, but I think Emperor Belus has been taking orders from the Collector, and maybe he's probably made a deal with him. So the Collector has given him the ability to potentially live long enough or whatever to see through his mission to basically get back to the human realm, and in return to the Collector he says, okay, you want all this magic that to make yourself the most powerful being in all of existence, and you want to collect all of that? Okay, fine, I'll give it to all of you as long as I can return home. I think Belus is basically treating the witches as collateral for him to basically return back.
Yeah, and we saw this with Philip Woodabane saying that he hated witches. So I take it that he's willing to do anything for him to return home, even if it means jeopardizing witches so that he can be able to follow up with his plans. And in return, the Collector gets whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to be very interested to meet the Collector. And here, just mind you, there is this crazy theory going around, the Collector is somehow, related to Luz in some way, which I think is a bit far-fetched, in my opinion. I know.
This is the whole thing
the Good Witch Azura being Luce's mom.
Yeah, exactly. Like, mind you, like, I still hold up a hope that the Good Witch Azura is like, like Luz and Amity's daughter or something like that. That'd be kind of cool if, like, if that ever happened. But
it'll be kind of like Infamous, in which when the main character meets up with like themselves from the future, or No More Heroes 3, in which Travis Touchdown takes down one of his descendants by accident.
Yeah. Anyway, we're kind of like waffling on into other Owl House theories, but once again, a great episode from the Owl House. So kudos to everybody who's worked on it.
And one little thing that we forgot to mention in regards to like the Day of Unity, and then Rain was asking the little abomination, "How are you going to be able to take this down?" And then there was another piece of paper that revealed Owl Lady. So they're saying that the only way they can be able to defeat this is with Ida's help. And then Rain said, "No, we need to find another way because I don't want to endanger Ida."
If I was standing right next to them, I'd basically be saying to them, get over. Like, look at the greater good here. We've got this psychopath who looks in that plan to be draining all the magic out of the Boiling Isles, and potentially could be causing some other chaos with this with this collector guy. Mind you, I don't know if the Coven heads are even aware of the existence of the collector, but something good is going on. I know you love Ida and everything like that, but we've got to think about the greater good here. Like, I don't know, like, imagine if Lumity was put on the line in regards to, like, saving the Boiling Isles, or, like, saving saving Earth from, like, being invaded. I'd be kind of like, well, yeah, it's sad that Lumity might have to be sacrificed in order to, like, create to save the world, but in the grander scheme of things, it is Russian novel stuff. I gotta be honest with you about that. But, you gotta think of the greater good sometimes. About what's going on here. So, I hope someone talks, Rain out of, like, saying, I know you care about Ida, but at the same time, she's the most powerful witch in the Boiling Isles, and, like, we really need her right now. But
I can understand where they're coming from in terms of, like, that Ida might be powerless, because we remember when we saw in Ida's Requiem, they saw Ida trying to control bard magic, but she wasn't able to do it. And the only way that they were able to do it together was to play the Ida's Requiem together, and they almost got killed for it. So I guess, because, remember that we only saw like one glyph that, Ida was able to use, and that was the invisibility glyph. So I take it that Rain probably doesn't know the capabilities that Ida was able to learn with the remaining glyph magic.
Also, I think there's the other thing about it as well, is that what's his face? There was something else to it as well. I don't think Rain has seen Harpy Ida either, so no. They've not had a chance to actually see Ida control the Owl Beast. And actually, it's going to be interesting, actually. Maybe if this draining spell somehow goes ahead, maybe it might drain the Owl Beast out of Ida, maybe. I don't
know. We'll see.
Maybe that'll still be the case. Oh, hey, we just maybe the Coven heads will probably find a way to actually cure Ida, or maybe cure Lilith, and maybe it's going to okay, these almost two powerful witches have got their powers back, and now let's go kick Belos' ass and let's deal with this collector guy. So
I don't know. There's still a lot to uncover, and like we always say before, we get answers, but then we're just thrown in with some more questions.
Well, that just raises further questions.
Yeah, next week's episode is going to be huge. This is the episode in which Luce and Hunter are going to be going into the mindscape of somebody, and that's going to be big.
Looking at the screenshots, I think it's Hunter. I think Hunter's going to go into his own mind. I think, and then, he's basically going to be confronted with, all the lies and all the propaganda of the Empress Coven, and then he's going to realize that all of it is basically, is not what he thinks it is. And, good grief, but imagine if it is Belos, the mind that they go into.
That would be so amazing.
And, and then he discovers, he's actually a Grimwalker this entire time, and, his whole life has been a lie. And, and that's the thing that basically, moves the needle, for Hunter to, abandon the Empress Coven and go into hiding, maybe, into the Owl House.
Wow.
Well, mind you, would you put it past this episode to do that?
Nope.
Compared to everything else that's going on?
Every single time time that we see a plot synopsis and we're going to be like, oh, that's what it's about. Okay, that's going to be pretty cool. And then all of a sudden it goes a complete 180, revealing something else. It's like, I shouldn't be surprised at any of this.
No. Hollow Mind, good grief. Here's the thing about this. You're going to give credit to the writers to start off with, because I have never seen so much story and so much development plugged into 22 minutes of cartoon, pretty much. And so here's the thing about this, like, you know, it's very talented for them to actually do that, but again, they're probably not doing this of their own volition, because as we all know, the Owl House pretty much is coming towards its end, and it has been dramatically cut short. We've pretty much got, you know, a couple of episodes left that we've pretty much talked about, all the way up to King's Tide, and then after that, basically, we've got the Season 3 specials after that.
Yeah.
So basically, we've not got much time left. And so right now, basically what they're having to do is they're having to, like, pack in, like, as many... imagine being told that, you know, maybe a lot of people in Russia are probably experiencing this right now. Imagine being told that McDonald's is going to be closing soon. So pretty much what everyone seems to be doing is that they're trying to buy as many Big Macs, as many Quarter Pounders, as many things as possible, and put them in the freezer. And, like, you know, save them up for, like, you know, when they actually need them. That's pretty much this. It pretty much seems to be what other Owl House episodes are pretty much going to be at this point. And so, Hollow Mind pretty much was supposed to focus on going inside, you know, the mind of Emperor Bellows, which sounds pretty terrifying in itself. Which, you know, you think is going to reveal, you know, mainly around, you know, what, you know, Emperor Bellows is pretty much up to. But no, it reveals a hell of a lot more than that. Pretty much. So, let's go into the smaller details and probably make our way into, like, you know, the main meat of this episode. So, Aberwolf is now part of the Resistance.
Yeah,
pretty much. So
I mean, I kind of had a feeling about that because Eberwolf and Darius would pair up, especially in Ida's Requiem. So I had a feeling that Eberwolf was going to be a part of this, and yeah, I mean, it's nice to see that there's more of a resistance other than the bards against the throne.
You know, like, and it makes you wonder, like, who else is part of this too? Like, I mean, like, are they the only three, or is there going to be more? Like,
we don't know yet. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, who knows how many more of the Coven heads are against Emperor Bellows' plan for the Day of Unity?
Yeah, so there's that. And also, on top of that, like, when we go into the Emperor's mind, we actually see a lot of, like, the lies and the deception that are also, like, you know, the Emperor Bellows has basically been telling to everybody, and has actually been fooling everyone, effectively.
Yeah.
Like, from day one, pretty much, of what he's been doing. So, one little detail, which I think, you know, we're going to be talking about a lot of detail. I feel like there's one little bit detail I think everyone's missing out on, which is, like, you know, like the Palisman monster that, you know, which was, like, apparently there was, you know, there's the thing that was warning, you know, Luz and Hunter, like, you know, beware of, like, the kid that they were following as well. Like, I mean, now that that's been vanquished, I mean, like, is now Emperor Bellows now in control of his, you know, of his curse, the same way that Ida's now in control of her curse?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, he was even saying, now I can be able to do this, which means that he was able to release that thing that we saw in the season 1 finale where, you know, he had no control over it. Maybe now he does, and it's like, now I can be able to control the curse that I do have. So now we have two characters who have a control of their curse, so that's going to be really interesting.
It makes me wonder, like, who's the original standoff going to be? Is it going to be the standoff between Ida and Bellows, or is it going to be Luz and Bellows? Like, you mean, who?
Yeah, remember, I mean, we saw this with the last episode, Them's the Breaks Kid, in which Darius wanted to have the Owl Lady, according to the notes, after he revealed to Rain, you know, what's going to be happening on the Day of Unity. So maybe it will be, you know, Emperor Bellows versus Ida, and then Luz is, you know, doing something else. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously we got to see the Collector too. And so,
yeah, the Collector, aka Bill Cipher 2.0.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, like, I don't know, like, I really want to. This Collector looks like, I don't know, like, I mean, the Collector is confusing. Like, you know, it basically looks like a kid. who basically rhymes and things like that, like some kind of creepy goblin or something like that. I don't know, but is Emperor Bellows also manipulating the Collector, or is the Collector manipulating him? I
wouldn't be surprised if, again, going into Gravity Falls, where Bill Cipher was manipulating Stanford, saying, "You want to have all the intelligence of the world? Let's pair up together, and I can give you all of the abilities to learn everything that you want to know." And then in the end, Bill Cipher stabs Stanford in the back. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Collector is convincing Emperor Bellows, "Hey, you need to be able to drain all this magic so that you can finally go home. And all you need to do is just help me out by getting rid of the witch's magic. You want to get rid of the witches, don't you? You want to go home. You want to be able to vanquish the evil, right? Well, help me and I'll help you." So I wouldn't be surprised if the Collector at some point stabs Emperor Bellows in the back.
What does the Collector have to gain from draining everybody's magic?
That's the thing. We don't know. I mean, from the looks of the Collector, very similar to Bill Cipher, I think the Collector just wants to create chaos.
Imagine if, I still feel like the worlds are all, connected in some way. Imagine if, the Collector, says, I want to cause some real mayhem. I'm going to collect all this magic because if I have all this power, I can resurrect Bill Cipher.
Well, remember, Bill Cipher was locked up into, Grunkle Stan's mind, so that'll be interesting.
And then was erased. So,
exactly, then was erased. Yeah.
But maybe the Collector might have found a way to say, I found the original blueprints of how Bill Cipher was created, and but I need a superpower to be able to resurrect him. But that's not even all the Titan blood in the Isles could potentially do that. I would need something more. So and that's when everyone's
and the fact that we had this major revelation about how we saw this in Elsewhere and Elsewhen, in which when eventually we had Philip Whittabane going over to opening up the Collector's door after he receives the mirror, and maybe that's how they were able to meet up by then. They were able to meet up hundreds of years ago, and then slowly they were trying to do the process of in order for you to do this, you need to do that. So yeah, there's so much more to the Collector that we don't know about. I mean, the last time that we saw the Collector was with Knock Knock Knocking on Tootie's Door, where we saw the memory of, the Owl Beast being captured by the Collector. So there has to be more to this than what we already see. The Collector in Knock Knock Knocking on Tootie's Door and the Collector in this episode is they're two completely different characters. I mean, one was really sinister, was "Now I got you," and then the other one was "Oh, I'm doing all these quirky little rhymes and I'm going to create chaos," and very whimsical and playful. So yeah, there's just so much to the character that we don't know about yet.
Mm-hmm. So we get introduced to the Collector, and mind you, there's some people coming to the theory that maybe, because you remember that Dana drew the Collector, but she ended up having ended up having. Oh, by the way, Dana announced the pronouns for the Collector as well. It's he, him, they, and them. So yeah, that basically. So the Collector. I mean, some people have been theorizing that the way that the Collector looks, it looks a bit like Luz. So maybe there's a possibility that the Collector might possess Luz and use Luz as as a physical body to exist in the world. So there's
maybe the reason that's why they were trying to capture Ida in the first place. Maybe the Collector wanted to get into Ida's Owl Beast body. So who knows? I mean, maybe the Collector at some point will play a bigger role than what we've already been seeing.
Mm-hmm. Also, I don't think anyone's been not sure if many people have been paying attention to this, but I'm just trying to find the pictures. But the portrait in the background in Bellows' head actually tells the story of what happens between him and his brother. So
I've been seeing the pictures too. I mean, a lot of it involves with two brothers having a good time with each other, and then as time went on, Philip was disagreeing with his brother about something, and then there was one that was a close-up shot of the brother laying down dead with a knife that was sticking out. So yeah, there's been a lot of storytelling.
I think there's far more than that. Oh, I mean, I
know that there's far more than that. I'm just trying to surmise it to like the bare basics.
Well, let's go further into detail about it. So, the first picture basically, shows them. So it looks like it looks like the other brother was the older brother, and Bellows basically was the younger brother, because you can see in the first picture that's him carving out the mask for him to wear. So there was that, and it looks like they were playing amongst themselves, and it looks like maybe they were like getting into like witch hunting at one point, because they shows them with a bunch of people, unless they're basically just getting into trouble and there was an angry mob chasing after them. I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, considering that Philip and his brother came from the 1600s, and this was around the time of the Salem witch trials.
Mm-hmm. So there was that, and then there's another image which shows someone showing the magic, and Bellows' brother is obviously intrigued by it, and Philip Woodbine himself is actually kind of worried about it, and so there's that, and then there's the images of them showing them being in the Boiling Isles, and it looks like they lived there for a while, from the looks of it.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the connection that Jacob was making in yesterday's lie about the two brothers who were kidnapped by the witches.
Mm-hmm. So, and then there's the next bit, which, by the way, is a pretty telling a bit. There's the bit where the brother is introducing Bellows to somebody, and it looks like a female, from the looks of it. And then we get the next one where it looks like the brother has walked away with the witch. And by the way, this particular image, it looks like she's pregnant in that one. And then you have Bellows just looking really scornfully at them both.
I mean, it's not just surprising, because we saw in Elsewhen that Philip Woodbine just had a stark hatred for witches. And I guess if his brother had a relationship with a witch, then he would be disgusted by it. It's like, how dare you be a part of these heathens? How dare you try to make a family with them? They're terrible, and they cause nothing but trouble. So yeah, I mean, that there would be a lot of stark contrast to what we know from Philip, and knowing about this other brother who is able to start a relationship with this other witch who we don't know about.
Yeah. So then there's the next one where it shows the brother introducing the witch to Bellows, and Bellows has a knife behind his back. And then I'm not too sure what happens there, but it looks like a fight ensues, and both the brothers are fighting one another, and obviously Bellows wins the fight, and then the other brother is dead from no doubt a stab wound from the looks of it. So that's kind of what's implied. But then the witch blasts Bellows with something, and while he's running away, so I don't know if it's the fact that the witch that the brother was in the relationship with saw that Bellows had killed her maybe her husband or whatever, and then she got really upset and angry and then cursed him.
Yeah, that's probably where the curse came from.
Yeah, and then you see Bellows, like in the next picture, is like carving glyphs into himself to try and cure himself, and obviously that doesn't work, and if anything that makes things worse. So then there's another bit which looks really disturbing. There's this one picture where Bellows is the top of the picture is covered in blood, and then there's a knife in this sink, and it implies that apparently that Bellows cut his own ears to basically look more like a witch in order to basically do the Bellows persona.
It makes a lot of sense, considering that we knew about this when we saw the makings of Bellows is is he Philip Woodbine? Is he the brother? We don't know. And we knew that his ears look so much shorter than all of the other witches' ears in the series. So I mean, now that we knew that Philip was Bellows, I mean, we had to assume that he was fabricating himself. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised in order for him to go into the Bellows persona after being chased away from village after village after village in the Boiling Isles, that he needed to create a new identity, and he had to basically change his name and carve his own identity.
Yeah, there's also a possibility that Darius also knew that Hunter was not. By the way, this is another thing we need to get into, because this is a massive thing. Hunter discovers that he's a Grimwalker. And basically, Bellows pretty much blatantly tells him, pretty much. And
I mean, we kind of knew about this, to be quite honest. The first moment that we saw in Eclipse Lake, where you had the makings of a Grimwalker. And then we had like the eyes. I mean, Hunter's eyes look exactly like the Grimwalker. So we knew that at some point it was going to be revealed that Hunter was going to be the Grimwalker. We did know about this.
Yeah. So, also, Darius, I think, probably knew about this because some people have been pointing out that Darius even questioned whether that, the Golden God was even, like, Bellus's nephew. And, like, was even questioning that, your nephew? Is that what you said? Like, so I think even Darius even knew that, he was wondering that somewhere down the line he was hoping that, Hunter was going to figure it out at some point. So... But, good grief, when Hunter, like, even discovers that there was other Golden Guards, that were also Grimwalkers, like, that was disturbing. Like, pretty much all these, like, I mean, obviously you couldn't, like, put bodies around, obviously you couldn't do that, but my goodness, you might as well have done, in the imagery, like, when he was seeing all of that. And, by the way, Luz, is still good-natured, even offers to have, Hunter in the Owl House and said, oh, even Ida probably wouldn't mind. Which, by the way, like, she definitely wouldn't from the way that things are played out. So, by the way...
and also the fact that, how many masks were there of the previous Golden Guards? I tried counting them, and there's, like, at least maybe, like, 12 or 14 or something.
Yeah, like, these Golden Guards don't last.
No. Like, well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, Emperor Bellows gets rid of them when they, don't do his well wishes. So if there's one of them that kind of, like, disobeys him, he'll get rid of them, and he'll just make another one.
Do you know what would be fun? Like, in... I like to see, like, there's a scene, like, at the very end, like, Hunter's, like, survived, and, like, there's, like, a memorial statue to, like, the Golden Gods of, like, past, and then, like, kind of like the scene out of Metal Gear Solid 4 when, like, Big Boss turns up, like, that graveyard scene. You know that one I'm talking about? Yeah, it's kind of funny if, like, the Owl House did their own version of that. Like, there's a Golden God that survived all this time, and Bellows thought he'd killed him, but in actual fact he wasn't. And,
yeah,
like,
and then he'll be, like, laying down on the grave, and he's like, boss, the world would be better off without snakes. Or, in this case, Bellows, the world would be better off without Golden Guards.
But, like, the one line I'd like to hear him say is, like, this all started with a bunch of old fools, and, like, he'd be, like, we're referring to, like, the witch hunters and the witch trials and everything like that, and now all those fools have passed away, and soon I'll be gone too. Like, that'd be kind of like, I like this to, like, be like, it tells, like, the whole Owl House story, but then at the very end, like, then there's, like, another story behind that, like, we did all these horrible things to witches and forced them to, like, run away to the Boiling Isles, and, like, tell that story as well. Like, I'd love to see that.
I would love to see that too, and also, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this were to happen, but, given that Emperor Bellows, he's running out of time, maybe he'll create another Golden Guard while Hunter is hiding.
You know what, like, you got, like, these two Golden Guards all fighting each other. Good grief, like, Hunter has to, like, basically kill a version of himself.
Yeah, that would be pretty screwed up.
You know something? The fact that, keep in mind, like, Bellows killed his brother, and then, I'm assuming, been using his bones to, like, make other Golden Guards out of him, and things like that.
Yeah, the bone of Ortet, which was one of the ingredients for the Grimwalker.
That sickens me. It really does. Like, I'm really hoping there's going to be, dare I say, Mike, at the very end of it, like, maybe, like, I keep thinking, like, what's an ironic death for Bellows? At the very end of all of this, like, imagine if it's like Hunter, like, who takes out the dagger that he killed, his brother with, and he ends up plunging it into Bellows and saying, like, wow. that would be a pretty good way for him to go out, wouldn't it? Like, his own creation killed him, pretty much like Frankenstein.
Wow, I mean, that would be pretty serendipitous and ironic.
Mm-hmm. So, by the way, Hunter has, like, an emotional breakdown, runs out of the Owl House, and, like, that would be, like, the end of the episode. But before we even get into that part of it, good grief, Luz. Like, she is not spared in this at all. Like,
no, especially if it was shown, I mean, if you go into this perspective, that, in a way, she kind of inadvertently helped Bellows get to the point where he is now. by allowing that one light spell that she showed Philip, and then helping with getting the mirror and distracting the creature, and he was able to get what he wanted. So I hope that Luce doesn't blame herself for all the stuff that's been happening.
You know what? I just think it's fate. Like, if you looked in the book, even showed Lilith and Luz actually being there in the book. So I don't think there was any way that she could have stopped it. No. Here's the thing about this, what if, the finale is that, they do find another time portal and they found a way to reverse this, but at the same time, it would mean that if they did this, that, there would be, Luz would never have gone through the portal and would never have, met anybody in the Boiling Isles. And she does.
Again, this is very similar to the last episode of Samurai Jack, in which when he was able to go back in time and kill off Aku, but by killing Aku, then all the people that he met up with over the years that he was wandering around in the future had all died. Not all died. I mean, had all forgotten about him because they never met, and then. Ashi, she dies because Aku never existed. And so now he's wandering around in this bittersweet note saying, yes, he was able to create peace, but at the cost of losing all the friends and the person that he loved in the process. It's really heartbreaking. It's you're doing the greater good by, maybe doing a portal door, going back in time, preventing yourself from meeting up with Philip Wittebane, and, at the process, it's you never met up with Ida, you never met up with Amity, you never met up with Willow or Gus or anybody, and all the adventures that you were able to do never happened. I mean, you're still a 14-year-old girl struggling in school with only your mom.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, I think she would also still have the memories of and learned all the lessons that she. And that's the thing I'm a bit worried about. It's going to be she goes through a time portal, she stops Philip Wittebane from where she burns the journal or something like that, and everything just stops, and Philip Wittebane's trapped in the Boiling Isles forever, and that she goes back to basically having a normal life, and but then they kind of try and sugarcoat it by saying, oh well, look at all these other characters that are in Gracefield that are sort of similar to the characters that you met at the Owl House, and look how you're getting on with them and everything like that. Oh hey, you met a girl that's sort of they met the human Amity, as they are referred to, the cheerleader girl. That they talk about, oh hey, you can start a relationship with her and stuff like that. It's just they'll try and that's what I'm a bit worried about. They'll try and end the series like that, which is kind of that's a pretty sucky ending, really, when you think about it.
Again, we don't know how the ending is going to turn out, but all the stuff that they were able to reveal in terms of all the stuff that Luce had inadvertently done. I mean, I'm sure that she's feeling a lot of guilt. I mean, she's been put through so much throughout the series, all from, gaining the trust of Amity and the relationship to, putting the pieces together about the Day of Unity, and then finding out that, Philip Wittebane was a jerk and he was not trustworthy of doing the portal door, to finding out that Bellows is Philip Wittebane. So, yeah, I mean, she was going through so much.
Yeah, that's one other thing I kind of want to talk about as well. It was pretty obvious that Philip Wittebane was going to be Emperor Bellows. I mean, we've kind of known.
We knew this at this point.
We knew this for a while. We knew this ever since the Looking Glass ruins. So we've known this for quite a while. But at the same time, it's sort of kind of a bit disappointing a little bit for me. I was hoping there was going to be some kind of twist. Of oh hey, this is it's not really Philip Wittebane. It's he's been kind of keeping himself alive by creating himself as Grimwalkers himself or something like that. But now I think we pretty much have to say that this is Philip Wittebane pretty much
well, here's the thing. I mean, I'm glad they didn't do the what was it, the George R.R. Martin route, or any of the other shows in which oh no, they figured out the plot twist, we need to change it so that we can create a different plot twist, even though it doesn't make sense in the story. Who cares? Our audience already figured it out. We need to be able to change it again so that they can be surprised, even though it makes no sense in the story. At least they didn't do that.
Sounds like you're getting a lot off your chest there, babe.
I mean, it's true. I mean, there's a lot of cases in which when I hear stories about, show creators and show writers saying, oh, our audience already figured out what the plot twist was even before we were going to release the episode, and now there has to be a case in which they either release the episode or they change it around and do a different plot twist, and in the context, it doesn't make a lot of sense because there was no build up to it.
Yeah. So, but Luz, now, here's the thing about this, like, I'm thinking they're going to go through, like, the whole thing of, like, Luz is going to, like, have the guilt of, like, she's the one who basically helped, Philip with the Bane become Bellows, and she basically became a part in that, but, I don't know, the way, like, I would see it, like, if she ever came to me and talked to me about this, like, look, Gordon Freeman slotted the carrier into the analysis vault and, created the Resonance Cascade scenario and, created all the events up to Half-Life 2, so, like, but everyone still thinks that he is a hero, and it's like it's not Luz's fault what happened. Like, unfortunately, it was fate, and like you could definitely tell that was fate because it was already written in the book prior to her going through the time portal and doing what she was going to do.
Exactly, so. And we can assume that Bellows had planned this all along, knowing that Luz was going to be coming in from the portal door in the future, which is why he planted all this stuff. I mean, that's why he donated the book to the library, because he knew that Luz was eventually going to go to the library to do research on Philip Whittlebane. At some points he knew that they were going to be meeting up with in Elsewhen, through the time portals. So, he was planning on this, making sure that he was ready for when Luz came along.
Yeah, because if you remember, like, before that episode when she went through the time portal, like, Tara was saying that, oh, the Emperor's looking forward to seeing you.
Yes.
Like, yeah. So,
exactly.
So the book was a trap, basically.
Yes, the book was a trap. Yes.
Yeah. So, this, I'm guessing we're going back to Hunter, and so Hunter has like a massive breakdown pretty much in the Owl House when they finally get out of his mind, and some people are saying this is pretty real. Like, what took place here, like, also, there's the one thing that you give credit to Ida is that when they come immediately back, like, she said, no, don't crowd round them, which is like, because they've been through a lot, which quite frankly is a really good, you can tell she's had some her parenting skills is getting a lot better at this point, but, I mean, like, in regards to Hunter, my good grief, like, in the space of 22 minutes, his whole world has fallen apart in front of him, and he is just gasping for, like, he is even suffocating, like, even on the on the sigil that he's wearing and everything. So he ends up, like, throwing that off, running out of the house and just going out into the forest, and with everyone, trying to chase back but can't catch up with him. He just ends up, disappearing into nothing. And good grief, that's here's the thing about it. I'm so sad. This is the reason why I'm so sad that the Owl House has been cut so short, because wouldn't you think we'd have a dedicated episode where Hunter would run out and he would you have to go through, like, an episode of self-discovery. He would have to figure out who he is all over.
The Last Airbender.
Exactly, there. He has to figure out where he is all over again. Oh, good grief. Imagine if we get to the point where, like, he disappears for a while, and, like, they go off and look for him, like, they find him, like, working in a tea room or something like that. Kind of like, a la Zuko. That would be a good note to the head, but, yeah, it would be kind of like, it's, and then he's trying to, like, forget about, like, all the craziness that have happened to him, and he is actually going by the name of Caleb now. Like, so, that'd be interesting. But,
that would be interesting.
Yeah, so, I'm hoping that, we're going to see, like, well, I think Hunter's, like, at the very beginning of his redemption arc now. Like, where he's like, okay, I helped create all this mess, and now I'm going to try and dig all my friends out of this. And, like, he's going to, like, join the resistance and try and, like, help, the Coven heads who are, like, turned against Bellows to try and, like, stop what's happening. Yeah. So, so... interesting to see here's the thing about this. I think I can imagine a scenario, right, where Luz is trying to tell everybody, look, Bellows is evil. He's actually, we've actually not talked about this yet. Bellows is a witch hunter.
Yeah.
Now that's the twist I liked. Basically, yeah.
It's surprising considering that Philip Whittlebane would have probably been a witch hunter when he was back in Gravesfield, because that would have been what he was going through at the time, where, there was the Salem witch trials, and, anybody who was, like, deemed, weird or unusual or doing unorthodox things was considered to be a witch. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he took that with him when entering into the Boiling Isles, where he was literally surrounded by witches.
Yeah. So basically the guy who is in charge of, like, the whole, or who supposedly is in charge of the Boiling Isles, is himself a witch hunter and wants to kill everybody. So, like, he
wants to basically kill everybody.
You know what? They laughed when I called this guy a deranged psychopath. Like, they're not laughing now, are they? Well, you're laughing, but I mean, like, yeah, like this is. I mean, here's the thing about this. Like, we're not done with twists. Like, this could go in other directions too. Like, it's
Yeah, like for example, next week's episode is going to be a major twist when we find out about King's past.
exactly, and also there's something else as well. They've run out of Titan blood in this episode.
Yeah, they did. So, Rain, Darius, and Eberwolf were originally supposed to go inside of Emperor Belos's mind. But then, when Hunter comes by and says, you're doing treason against the Emperor, you guys are under arrest, not knowing who they were. And then Luce comes along and then was asking Hunter, hey, you haven't been answering any of my letters. Can I ask you a few questions? And then Hunter accidentally steps in on the serum that was supposed to enter into the mind of Emperor Belos, and that's how they got trapped in the first place. And in the meanwhile, there's the side story plot in which when we have Ida, who's trying to get Luce and Hunter out of Emperor Belos's mind, but she can't do it now because she has no magic. And so we have Rain, Eberwolf, and Darius who are trying to help Ida out, but the thing is that Hootie has his defenses up, and so Rain decides that they're going to send flowers containing the potion ingredients that they need so that they can be able to free Luce and Hunter from Emperor Belos's mind. And yeah, I mean, they were able to help out in that course of the episode, and I think that was actually pretty commendable that they were able to do that.
Yeah. And so, by the way, like, Flowers was a very good note because obviously, they're still teasing the potential relationship between, Rain and Ida at this point.
Yeah, and I also thought it was kind of funny where, like, Hootie was bringing in the flowers saying, like, it's from your secret admirer, apparently. And, yeah, it literally was.
Yeah. By the way, have you watched Morgan's reaction video to this?
Yes, I have.
I have, and she throws a chair and snaps his pencil and destroys pretty much, probably going around the house destroying everything else at the moment. And but before she did that, I did tweet at her, and I said, so I just watched Morgan Terry's reaction to Hollow Mind, saying that Luz is now stuck in the demon realm because they used the last of the Titan blood. And I said to her, do you remember back in Knock 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 on Hootie's Door when Hootie and Tiny Mouse took blood from King previously, and they quote unquote didn't know what it was? Wink.
I remember you saying that, and I think that was even a theory that we had when we were discussing about that episode when they couldn't figure out if King was, if King was a bug, if King was a beast, if King was a hybrid. They was inconclusive. So yeah, that could be a possibility. I mean, you mentioned that when this episode first aired.
Yeah, like I believe that King has some kind of connection with the Titan and may actually even have Titan blood himself.
Yeah, and we'll probably know about that next week.
Yeah, so something tells me he's going to be a rather generous donor soon. So.
Or anybody else that they meet up with who is, part of King's family.
Yeah.
I mean, especially since we saw in the pictures for the teaser of that episode, or maybe it's an episode that's coming out later on, that there's a whole slew of other people that looks like King other than the Traveler, and with the one that had the caravan in there, and the one that we've been seeing throughout the course of the series, the one that we saw in Knock Knock Knocking on Hootie's Door and in Ida's Requiem. So yeah, I mean, there's more to this that we don't know about, and I'm sure that there's going to be a push for Ida and Luce to kind of like warn everybody about the date of Unity, and we'll see that in the course of the next month or so. So yeah, there's a lot that's coming up, and I cannot wait to see how this story unfolds.
But mind you, given the fact that now we have some synopsises in regards to the next couple of episodes going all the way up to King's Tide, so the fact that in this next episode that we're going to be getting, that King's going to be confronting basically who he is. So I mean, like maybe we might discover a lot more about King and his kind and everything. Like also, I'm wondering if there's going to be like some tension between Hootie and King, because keep this in mind, Hootie ate the original message.
That's right. Yeah.
So like maybe he might cough it up, and maybe they might find it. It's kind of like maybe that's going to cause a little bit of tension between people. I don't know. So that's.
I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, like maybe there'll be a distance between King and Hootie. It's like, Hootie, why didn't you tell me that this guy came along and he looked like me? And maybe Hootie would try to like maybe say I don't remember or something, and then maybe there'll be like some sort of maybe like distaste and disagreement with the two of them, or maybe if King finds out about something that he really, really, really didn't want to hear, it'll really upset him.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, let's just throw some more angst into the whole. Oh, now Hunter's having a crisis about who he is. Oh, Luce feels guilt about possibly letting in Emperor Bellows, getting all the power that he needs so that he can be able to take over everything. So yeah, let's just throw some more angst in there.
Yeah, maybe, like, we'll keep this in mind, given the fact that this, they supposedly, how many times have we said, oh, this is a King episode, this is a Gus episode, this is this episode, and then all of a sudden we get, like, all these other, like, main, advances into the plot. I mean, by the time we get to, to the next episode, next week, I mean, are Ida and Rain going to rekindle their relationship in that episode?
I don't know. This show always throws in those twists. It's like, the Follies of the Coven's head. We just thought it was just going to be a little parade that Luce was going to have to take down. We didn't know it was going to be building up the relationship with Luce and Amity, and we didn't know that Ida and Rain were going to confront each other. Willow and Amity were going to basically, rekindle their friendship again. Exactly, yeah. Or, knock on Hootie's door. Oh, Hootie's just trying to help everybody out. We just thought it was going to be like more of a lighthearted episode. Nope.
I just realized something. I just realized something. Where Hunter ran off to. Like, what if he ran to Willow?
Wow, do you think that Willow would be able to take him in? And, I mean, I don't know how her dads would be able to react to that.
Also, girl brings in boy. Like, it's, and also, like, has a relationship with said boy, potentially. Yeah, I can just imagine that, imagine how fun it would be, like, Hunter's there, wants to see Willow, and then gets interrogated by her dads. Like,
that'll be quite funny.
It probably might be the greatest good cop, bad cop discussion of all time. Oh, that'd be so much fun, because one's the cool dad and one's the really, like,
exactly.
dad.
Yeah, I know about that.
Yeah.
It will kind of be like that scene in Clueless in which when Cher brings her boyfriend over to her dad, and then the dad basically says, if you treat my daughter wrong, just remember that I have a shotgun and a shovel, and I doubt that anybody will miss you. So I don't know if it'll go into that territory, but yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if Hunter were able to go over to Willow, needs a place to stay, and then, her dads would eventually confront
that shotgun and shovel statement would probably have more meaning, given the fact that, Hunter doesn't have much of a social life. Like, and look what happens to all the other golden guards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so basically there's that episode, and then the next episode is going to be Labyrinth Runners, where the Emperor's Coven comes to Hexside, and Gus teams up with an unlikely ally. So whether that means that Hunter's going to come back and help Gus out, and, like, they're going to have, like, their kind of, like, oh, hey, Hunter's not as bad as you think he is, and maybe that's going to, like, Gus and Hunter are basically going to have their kind of, like, team up, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we did kind of see in Any Sport in a Storm that Gus wasn't really trusting too much on Hunter, especially when they were locked up in jail, and then they were going to be taken away, quote unquote. But then he starts building his trust, so that could be a possibility. I mean, I can't really think of another ally that he would be pairing up with. I mean, unless it's somebody that we don't know of. Maybe Gus will be paired up with Rain. Who knows?
Yeah, like there was like a meme that was going around, which I thought was very interesting. Is like, they have, like, the 5 characters, and, like, they all have, like, their own different character traits. And, like, so, like, the 5 basically would be, Luz, Amity, Gus, Willow, and Hunter. So, like, you have, like, the 5-team dynamic, pretty much. And, like, so, I mean, maybe they might have, like, a point where basically all 5 of them are all together, and, like, and they, like, maybe have reservations about Hunter, or maybe, like, Hunter has reservations, I don't know. Like, they have, like, this kind of, like, this dynamic for one another, and, like, they all have to team up to, like, fight and stuff. So, like, maybe we're building up towards that, maybe. So,
maybe.
Then we got O Titan, Where Art Thou? And so Ida and Luce scramble to face the Day of Unity, and King faces his true identity. So I guess, over the next couple of episodes, this whole, King finding out who he is going to be an overarching thing over the next couple of episodes, I guess, up until May 14th.
Yeah, I mean, especially since there's this buildup about like the Titan. So I mean, if there is a connection with King and the Titan, then maybe King has to like follow some sort of destiny that he didn't even remotely know about.
Yeah. Then we got clouds on the horizon where everyone on the Owls prepares to celebrate the Day of Unity. So that's kind of like prepping up, I guess, for the season finale.
Kind of like similar to how in Avatar they were prepping up for, Sozin's comet to be arriving. So I guess it's kind of like similar to that.
Yeah, like I wonder if it's going to be like there's going to be like a calmness, like they're all in the camp and like they're all like getting ready for like what's going to happen, like to get their plan ready for like stopping the Day of Unity or whatever, and then so like maybe we get some like some more development in the characters in that episode, and because there's nothing really actually kind of like descriptive about it. It's very like everyone on the Owls prepares to celebrate the Day of Unity, like so like are they gonna like tell like two different sides of it, like the people rebelling against it and the people preparing for it, maybe. So,
possibly, yeah. I mean, the Owl House does tend to, shift into two different perspectives. So that could be a possibility where, Emperor Bellos is preparing for the Day of Unity and Lucin Ida and everybody else is preparing to combat it.
Yeah. And then King's Tide, where the Day of Unity begins. So, do you know what would be an interesting twist? Like, I doubt they'd even do it, but imagine if, like, King somehow, like, ends up kind of, like, turning in because like he thinks, oh, I'm supposed to be the true ruler of like the Boiling Isles and yada yada yada, so they end up like defeating Bellows and like or whatever, and then King ends up being kind of like the bad, ends up turning into like the bad guy, like kind of like the bad ending of like Streets of Rage, kind of like that maybe.
Yeah.
And then like he throws like all the good guys like into the human realm, and like he becomes like the the overbearing ruler of like the Boiling Isles, and then we go into season 3, and then they have to stop King.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that really bad ending of the reboot of Alone in the Dark, where the main character accepts the darkness inside of him, and then he just yells out, "I am the Lightbringer. I own the fucking universe." So it's like we're going to go into that direction where even though he says that he is the one who brings the light to everybody, he's actually becomes the next bad guy.
Yeah, so and then we get to season 3, and like it's all the shit goes down. Yeah. Anyway, we've done far too much speculating, I think, on the Owl House. Have a good week, everybody, and I hope you enjoy all the theories that we're enjoying right now. And take care, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
See you guys.